Chapter 1079. Where is Murong Yu? In the eastern wilderness, a figure appeared in the sky above the holy city. A violent aura emanated from his body, enveloping the entire holy city in an instant. At the same time, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The terrifying sound waves hit the holy city in an instant, and some of the weaker disciples almost fainted. Impudent! An angry roar was heard, followed by a monstrous hand reaching out from the holy city and slapping the figure in the sky. The person in the sky was the rank 5 quasi-saint who had come from Old Man Pei's place. This guy relied on his strength as a rank 5 quasi-saint. Although he had come to seek medical treatment, he could not lower himself. Hence, this scene occurred. At this moment, when he saw the incoming hand, he only sneered and was about to retreat. However, the one who had attacked was the rank 10 quasi-saint, Shen Tu-hai. How could a mere rank 5 quasi-saint resist? With a bang, the rank 5 quasi-saint was slapped down by Shen Tu-hai and fell to the ground, creating a huge human-shaped crater. Pooh! Although Shen Tu-hai did not have the intention to kill, he did not go easy on him. The rank 5 quasi-saint was already heavily injured. Now that he was slapped by Shen Tu-hai, he immediately spat out blood, worsening his injuries. The rank 5 quasi-saint was depressed. He did not expect the holy city to have such a powerful existence. Otherwise, he would not have appeared like this. However, before he could finish his gloominess, the large hand from before grabbed him and took him away. "Kid, you're courting death, do you know that?" Shen Tu-hai looked coldly at the rank 5 quasi-saint with murderous intent. The rank 5 quasi-saint smiled embarrassedly and immediately apologized. "Senior, I'm here to seek medical treatment. Please introduce me to Holy Lord Murong Yu." In front of the rank 10 quasi-saint, the rank 5 quasi-saint could only lower his stance. Otherwise, Shen Tu-hai could crush him to death with a single finger. Scram! Shen Tu-hai roared, wanting to chase the type 5 quasi-saint away. The type 5 quasi-saint felt bitter, feeling as though he had shot himself in the foot. However, he did not leave. Shen Tu-hai snorted coldly and stretched out his hand, grabbing this 5th stage quasi-sage and wanting to throw him out. "Shen Tu-hai, it's not right to treat a guest like this." Just as Shen Tu-hai was about to toss the quasi-saint away, Murong Yu's voice rang out. "Yes, Holy Lord." Shen Tu-hai obeyed Murong Yu's every word, immediately releasing the type 5 quasi-saint. The tier 5 quasi-saint instantly felt that spring had arrived. He turned to look at Murong Yu. A smile appeared on his face. "Murong Yu, Holy Lord, please, you must heal my injuries. As for the consultation fee, I'll definitely satisfy you." Murong Yu faintly wrinkled his brows, but a smile quickly appeared on his face. "There's no problem with your injuries. However, my consultation fee is much more expensive than others. Moreover, your roar in the sky above the holy city injured countless of my Shenzhen's disciples. You have to compensate for this." The type 5 quasi-saint frowned slightly, but in order to recover his strength, he agreed. "How much is the consultation fee?" 100 million Saint Meridians and 1,000 Saint Artifacts. Murong Yu said indifferently. Plop! The type 5 quasi-saint immediately fell to the ground. Even if he was the type 5 quasi-saint, where did he get 100 million Saint Meridians and 1,000 Saint Artifacts? Things of this level, whether it was divine artifacts or Saint Meridians, were extremely rare. "Holy Lord, this is a little expensive," the type 5 quasi-saint said gloomily. "In fact, how is it a little expensive? In fact, it was too expensive. You can go back. Perhaps after a few million years, your injuries will be healed. However, during this process, you might have been killed by your enemies or devil race experts. 100 million Saint Grey Divine Veins, 1,000 Saint Grey Divine Artifacts, or your life, which one is more precious?" Murong Yu indifferently asked, "But I really don't have these things." He might be able to take out some Saint Meridians and Divine Artifacts, but that was after countless years of living. Even if he used up all his lifespan, he might not be able to gather 100 million Saint Meridians. Can you pay me in installments? The Type 5 Quasi-Saint said bitterly. Morong Yu shook his head. The Type 5 Quasi-Saint sighed and shook his head as he walked out. The consultation fee was too expensive, and he couldn't afford it. Of course, there is another way, Morong Yu said indifferently, just as the Type 5 Quasi-Saint was about to leave. The Type 5 Quasi-Saint was pleasantly surprised and turned to look at Morong Yu. 500,000 years. I can heal your injuries in a day and let you return to your peak state. However, you must serve me and Shenzhen for 500,000 years. Of course, I won't send you to your death while you're serving me. However, there are some normal orders that you must follow unconditionally. 500,000 years. Sell his life to Morong Yu? The fifth-level Quasi-Saint frowned deeply. His heart was filled with resistance against such a request. After all, he was a Quasi-Saint and had the dignity of a Quasi-Saint. If he worked for Morong Yu, he couldn't swallow his pride. Your injuries, if you want to recover by yourself, would take at least a few million years. Now, it only takes 1/10 of your time. After 500,000 years, you can regain your freedom. If you agree, I will treat you immediately. Otherwise, you can leave. Morong Yu wasn't in a hurry and said indifferently, I'm willing. The Type 5 Quasi-Saint pondered for a while, then gritted his teeth and agreed. With a faint smile, Morong Yu tossed out a prepared contract. It'll take effect after you sign it. The Type 5 Quasi-Saint glanced at it and immediately signed his name. It was only now that Morong Yu knew that he was called Yudong. Let's begin. After Yudong signed, Morong Yu gestured for him to sit cross-legged. Right here, Yudong was a little hesitant. When he saw Morong Yu nod, he immediately sat down cross-legged. Morong Yu also sat cross-legged behind him and placed his hands on his back. Immediately, an incomparably powerful life force rushed into his body. In an instant, Yudong found that his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The stronger the physical body, the slower the recovery. Although Yudong's physical body was far inferior to Morong Yu's, it was still relatively strong compared to his strength. Therefore, if he needed to recover, it would take an extremely long time. However, these injuries were nothing in front of Morong Yu's life force. They were healed immediately. In less than half a day, Yudong's injuries that would take millions of years to recover had been healed. Not only did his strength recover to its peak, but it also seemed to have improved. Thank you, Holy Lord. After discovering all this, Yudong lowered his head and bowed. If he was still a little unwilling to sign the contract before, then this time, he was more than willing to do so. At the same time, the shock in Yudong's heart was unparalleled. Injuries that would take millions of years to recover were healed in less than half a day. All of this was simply too shocking. Yudong, you are my first patient. You should be very clear about what to do next. Morong Yu looked at Yudong and smiled faintly. I know. Yudong bowed to Morong Yu before his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Swoosh! When he appeared again, he was already in the Huichun Hall in Desolation City. Old Man Pei, although you can't heal me, you can. However, you recommended Morong Yu, the Holy Lord of the Primal Chaos Shenzhen. Although Morong Yu's consultation fee is more expensive, the injuries that would take millions of years to recover were healed in less than a day. Therefore, I specially came to thank you, Yudong said loudly after he appeared. His loud voice spread far and wide, attracting many people. Old Man Pei looked at Yudong and realized that his injuries were indeed healed. He could not help but be stunned. Although he knew that Morong Yu's life force was abnormal, he did not expect it to be abnormal to this extent. Isn't this Quasi-Saint? His injuries are really healed? Many people present had seen Yudong wreaking havoc in the Huichun Hall. At that time, Yudong was in a very sorry state, but now he was in high spirits. How did he look injured? Could it be that he is really healed? Is it really that miraculous? Everyone's interest was piqued by Morong Yu. You don't believe me? Yudong could not help but glare when he saw everyone pointing at him. Just when everyone thought that he was going to flip out, Yudong said, If you don't believe me, you can go and try. However, let me give you a piece of advice. If you want Murong Yu to treat you, don't prepare enough consultation fee. Let's go. Let's go take a look. In an instant, many people were tempted. They left the Huichun Hall one after another. Not long after, the originally crowded Huichun Hall was only left with 2 or 3 people. Old Man Pei was depressed. Wasn't Murong Yu trying to steal his business? However, this was normal. With Murong Yu's strength, it was only a matter of time before he stole his business. Holy City, in front of the Hall of the Holy Hand. The originally empty Hall of the Holy Hand was now filled with long queues. There was an endless stream of people walking out of the Hall of the Holy Hand in high spirits. These people were all seriously injured before they went in. Now, they were walking out with smiles on their faces. It was obvious that their injuries had been treated. Is Murong Yu's ability really so terrifying? No matter how serious the injuries are, as long as there is enough shock, they can recover quickly. After those who had been treated left Holy City, they were still shocked. They talked about how powerful Murong Yu was. In an instant, the news of Murong Yu, the great miracle doctor, quickly spread among the human army. Many people came after hearing the news, wanting to be treated by Murong Yu. Murong Yu, on the other hand, didn't refuse anyone. Of course, the prerequisite was that there was enough consultation fee. Otherwise, no matter who you were, he would ignore you. Chapter 1080. After the war broke out, it had been going on. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years had passed. In these 10,000 years, both the human race and the demon race had lost many gods. Hundreds of millions. However, the more people died, the more tragic the war became. The hatred between the two races towards each other grew stronger. However, the war that had lasted for 10,000 years had also gradually changed. In the beginning, it was either the demon race or the human race that took the initiative to attack. This went on for close to 10,000 years. Now, the two races no longer sent out their troops together. They had both retreated to two sides of the eastern wilderness. In the entire eastern wilderness, other than the bases of the two races, everything else had become a battlefield. In the battlefield, whether it was an individual, a team, or an army, they were often active in killing the enemy. By killing the enemy, they could obtain the items in the enemy's storage space. They could even steal the enemy's divinity and so on. Other than that, they could also kill the enemy's clansmen. In this process, Murong Yu had also brought Shenzhen's disciples out many times. Every time they went out, they would be able to kill countless demon race experts. However, Shenzhen's disciples were not invincible. Every time they went out, there would be people who would die. This was something that was inevitable. However, because of the war, the strength of these people on the battlefield had increased rapidly, especially the 100,000 battle teams. They were all very powerful and had terrifying concealment abilities. Hence, in these 10,000 years, no one had died. However, there were many people who were severely injured. However, Murong Yu would not charge these people for treatment. A ray of life energy would heal them, no matter how serious the injury was. In these 10,000 years, the 100,000 battle teams had been attacking continuously. At least a few 100 million demon race experts had died in their hands. The more enemies they killed, the more benefits they would receive. Basically, Murong Yu would not ask about the spoils of war that they obtained on the battlefield. Of course, Murong Yu also welcomed these people to donate their spoils of war to Shenzhen's treasury. Night Walker. This was the name that the demon race and the human race had given to Shenzhen's 100,000 battle teams. This was because no one had ever discovered their existence. No one knew where they were or where they were hiding. Just like travelers in the night, no one could know their whereabouts. The human race was a little better because they weren't enemies. However, the demon race was much more terrified. This was because many of the demon race's troops had been killed by the Nightwalkers on the battlefield. If there were not many demon soldiers, Shenzhen's team would directly launch a sneak attack and annihilate all the demon soldiers. If there were too many enemies, they would continuously ambush, hide, and ambush as long as Quasi-Saint didn't show up. no one could do anything to these experts. Therefore, many experts of the demon race were trembling with fear after entering the battlefield. They were not worried about encountering the human army, but they were afraid of encountering the Nightwalkers. Both sides suffered heavy losses. However, there was only one person who profited greatly. He was Morongyu. Many people died in the war. However, there were even more people who were injured. Moreover, Morongyu's healing ability was extremely terrifying. His power had long spread among the human army. Therefore, some seriously injured people would often pay a high price to get Morongyu to treat them. After 10,000 years, the medical fees that Morongyu earned were comparable to the treasure vault of Flying Cloud Cliff. It had already surpassed the treasure vault of the Divine Union for many years. One could imagine how terrifying his income was. Of course, it wasn't that no one was jealous of Morongyu and came over to wantonly cause trouble. However, there were several rank 10 quasi-saint overseeing the holy city. Those who came over to cause trouble were all taken down and then thrown out after paying a high compensation. There was no other way. Shenzhen was now very powerful. Ordinary people were not qualified to come over and cause trouble at all. However, Morongyu was also depressed. Because 10,000 years had passed, his strength was still stagnant at the peak of the Heavenly Emperor realm and had not improved at all. If the human race won the war between the two races, Morongyu's current strength would be sufficient. However, if the human race was defeated, his strength might not even be able to protect Shenzhen. Swoosh! Morongyu had just healed a seriously injured heavenly venerate when a figure appeared in front of him the next moment. The person who came was Fantong. After this guy got married, it was unknown whether or not he cultivated the sinful dual cultivation technique, but his strength skyrocketed all the way. Now, he actually already reached the Heavenly Emperor realm. Morongyu, do you feel that something is wrong? Fantong asked immediately after he came over. Morongyu felt baffled. What's wrong? Could it be that the demon race powerhouses are coming over to launch a sneak attack? Fantong shook his head. Sneak attacks were a common occurrence. It was not enough to make him feel that something was wrong. I feel that the sky seems to be changing, Fantong said in a low voice. Why do you suddenly have this feeling? You haven't left the holy city for a long time and set foot on the battlefield, right? Just go to the battlefield and experience it. Seeing Fantong's solemn expression, it did not seem like he was joking. Morongyu could not help but frown slightly. After immediately instructing for the treatment to be suspended, he left the battlefield with Yang Qin and Zhuqiuqing. The restriction flew towards the battlefield. Before they even got close to the battlefield, an extremely strong smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. The strong stench made people want to vomit. Looking around, there were originally mountains and rivers, but the ground had long been flattened. The entire ground turned purple-black. This was because too many people had bled on this land. Many little drops made an ocean. In the end, even the ground turned purple-black. Although there was no fighting nearby, Morongyu felt a solemn and austere atmosphere. There was even a strong sense of oppression. That kind of oppression seemed to come from the soul, but also seemed to come from the body. From the sky and the ground, it pressed down from all directions. Other than these feelings, Morongyu seemed to feel another kind of aura. It was faintly discernible, but it made Morongyu's heart palpitate. Chi! At this moment, Fantong cut his other hand with a hand knife. A large amount of blood spurted out and splattered on the ground. Just as Morongyu looked at Fantong with a surprised gaze, wondering why he would harm himself, Fantong said, "Look at the blood." Morongyu looked over and saw that the blood quickly disappeared after coming into contact with the ground, seeping into the depths of the ground. What's strange? When liquid falls to the ground, it will seep quickly. Morongyu looked at Fantong. Don't you think the speed of the seeping is too fast? Moreover, my blood didn't even stay on the ground. It was as if something was devouring the blood below. Morongyu was slightly shocked. Something was sucking the blood below? Moreover, it's not just here. The entire battlefield, and even the entire eastern wilderness, is the same. Fantong said in a low voice. If there's really something absorbing blood, Then is there only one in the entire continent, or is there such a thing in the entire eastern wilderness? Fan Tong shook his head. He only felt that it was strange. Now, many people must have noticed this phenomenon and made all kinds of guesses. It was just that no one knew what it was. Moreover, although they felt that there was something strange in the eastern wilderness, the war between the two races would definitely not end. The eastern wilderness was still a battlefield. Otherwise, they would have to enter the human or demon race's continent to fight. It would no longer be a confrontation, but a war of conquest. What do your father and the others think? Fan Tong shook his head. Divine Lord, there are demon race experts coming. Should we retreat first? As the quasi-saint did not allow ordinary people to participate in the war, Yang Qin and the others could not interfere if the demon race attacked. Once they interfered, the quasi-saint of the demon race would also attack without restraint. By then, the war would become a chaotic one. This was something that they could not allow to happen now. Let's retreat first. As he spoke, Murong put Fan Tong and the others into the Hichu Luoshu world, then teleported back to the holy city. Just as they disappeared, a small demon race team with tens of thousands of people rushed over from afar. It seems to be the Shangzhen's Murong. I heard that guy is not only powerful, but his medical skills are even more terrifying. He has healed many seriously injured people. If we can kill or capture him, we will definitely be rewarded greatly. It's just a pity. Countless demon race experts looked in the direction that Murong and the others had disappeared and could not help but shake their heads and sigh. After returning to the holy city, Murong let Fan Tong out. Then, with a single thought, he appeared in Primeval College on the Eldritch continent. Appearing in Xiang Sungwu's courtyard, Murong immediately shouted, "Elder Xiang, you're not dead yet, right?" Xiang Sungwu, who was resting with his eyes closed in the courtyard, could not help but shudder when he heard Murong's words. Then, the thought of slapping Murong to death flashed through his mind. Xiang Sungwu walked out and resisted the urge to slap Murong to death. His face darkened as he said, "If you're not dead, how can I die in Primeval College? I'm just concerned about you. If you're dead, can I come back to collect your corpse?" Hee. Murong chuckled. "What's the matter?" Xiang Sungwu asked directly. Murong would never visit a temple for no reason. Every time he came, there must be something. Xiang Sungwu was already used to it. "Do you know about the Eastern Wilderness?" "Nonsense. Who doesn't know about the battlefield between the two races?" Murong's face darkened. This old man knew that he did not mean it that way. "Why did you choose the Eastern Wilderness as the battlefield?" Murong asked again. He felt that there was something fishy about the two races choosing that place as the battlefield. It was not because it was far away from the human race and the demon race's territory. The battlefield designated by the higher-ups. Xiang Sungwu pondered for a moment, then looked at Murong with a serious expression. "Kid, do you know something?" It seemed like Xiang Sungwu knew something. Chapter 1081. Xiang Sungwu obviously knew something, so Murong looked straight at him. "Kid, why did you suddenly ask this question? Do you know anything about the Eastern Wilderness?" Xiang Sungwu asked again. Murong shook his head. "I found something strange in the Eastern Wilderness. I vaguely felt that something was wrong, so I came to find you. Old man, if you know anything, quickly tell me." Looking at Xiang Sungwu's expression, Murong's face became serious. "Fine, you have the right to know." Xiang Sungwu sighed, then continued speaking in a low voice. "According to legends, before the ancient times, the God world was not like this. At that time, the God world was a huge continent, and it was just called the God world. There were no continents. Moreover, at that time, not only did the gods live in the God world, even the saints lived under the same sky. The world was peaceful. The saints and the gods lived in the same era. At that time, the God world's endurance was so strong." When Xiang Sungwu said this, Murong could not help but ask. Xiang Sungwu shook his head. "This is just a legend. No one knows whether it is true or not." "What happened after that?" "It caused the God world and the holy world to separate. The gods and the saints became the existences of two different worlds? Also, why was the god world divided into so many continents? Muronyu asked. According to legends, the saints and the gods lived under the same sky, and this situation lasted for countless years. But suddenly, one day, there were foreign experts who broke the peace of the god world. Those foreign experts are extremely powerful. Even an ordinary saint would not be able to withstand those foreign experts. According to legends, only the top saints were qualified to fight with those foreign experts. After these foreign experts appeared, they destroyed the world as if they wanted to destroy the world. In just one day, the entire god world was almost destroyed by them. Muronyu once again couldn't help but interrupt Xiang Sungwu's words. Could it be that the divine realm was shattered by the battle between the saints and these foreign experts? How do you end up like this? Who were those foreign experts? Where did he come from? Why do you want to destroy the world? The strength of the foreign experts was extremely strong. Wherever they passed, the sky and earth were destroyed. All life forms were exterminated. It was a serious threat to the survival of the saints. As a result, the saints of the entire sacred world had organized themselves to wage war against those foreign experts. The war was extremely bitter, but it didn't last long. However, because of that battle, the entire god realm was also shattered. It was no longer suitable for experts above the saint realm to live in. However, in that battle, the saints of the god realm ultimately won. Kill all the foreign experts. However, the god realm's losses were also extremely severe. The deities were almost completely wiped out. Most of the sages were also dead. The entire continent of the god realm was sunk, and the vital energy of heaven and earth was scattered. There was no longer any land that could survive. Most of the remaining saints were injured as well. In the end, they found the current sacred world and moved all of them there. The entire continent of the god realm was sunk, and the deities were almost completely wiped out. There are so many continents in the god realm now. Are they all formed later? Also, what are those foreign experts? The continent we are in isn't a fragment of the original continent of the god realm, and it wasn't formed later. Instead, do you know what those foreign experts are? Muronyu rolled his eyes. He seemed to have asked this question twice. Not only did Xiang Sungwu not answer, but he also asked a question in return. How would he know this? Those foreign experts weren't humans or demons. They weren't ferocious beasts either. They weren't any life forms that we know of. In fact, the ancients didn't even know where these experts came from. Why did they attack the god realm? Why did they want to destroy the world? These foreign experts were called desolates by the people of that time. Desolates. When he heard this, Murongyu's heart couldn't help but sink. A bad feeling appeared in the depths of his heart. Do you feel that something is wrong? Legend has it that there were 5 strongest desolates at that time. The bad feeling in Murongyu's heart became more and more intense. The 5 strongest desolates were called prehistoric desolates, heaven desolates, savage desolates, great desolates, and demon desolates. Xiang Sungwu said, a shocking legend. The 5 biggest continents in the god realm. Are we on top of the corpse of desolates? Muronyu blurted out. His face was full of shock. Congratulations, you got it right. Muronyu was instantly stunned. How big were these desolates' bodies? They actually formed such a big continent. How big was the prehistoric continent? It was hard to describe a number, and this was just a corpse of desolates. If the 5 continents are desolates' corpses, then the other continents of different levels are also other desolates' corpses. Our god realm has always existed on top of desolates' corpses. Once desolates' corpses are destroyed, wouldn't the continents of the god realm be destroyed as well? These are just legends. As for whether the continents are desolates' corpses, we don't know. Because, since ancient times, many people have wanted to verify the authenticity of this legend. But there has been no answer. Xiang Sungwu shook his head. He didn't care about it at all. What's strange about the Eastern Desolates? Muronyu, who was still in shock, told Fan Tong about their discovery. What did you think? Xiang Sungwu pondered for a moment. Then, he looked at Muronyu. Don't tell me that Eastern Desolates is going to be revived. If it's really going to be revived, our god realm will be destroyed by it. No one is its match. Muronyu said in a deep voice. Although the Eastern Desolates wasn't as big as the prehistoric continent, it was definitely not small. Once Eastern Desolates was revived, not to mention the God Realm, even most of the saints in the Holy World wouldn't be its match. Don't tell me that the people above are going to revive Eastern Desolates. Moronu pointed upwards and said doubtfully, "Impossible. In the Holy World, humans and demons are mortal enemies. It's impossible for them to work together to revive Eastern Desolates. Moreover, the revival of Eastern Desolates won't benefit them at all. On the contrary, it might destroy the God Realm and destroy their foundation." Xiang Sungwu immediately denied it. Although he hadn't become a saint yet, there were saints in the primeval college. They would more or less know something about the Holy World. Of course, these were things that the saints wanted them to know. As for whether it was the truth or not, that was another matter. This is definitely a conspiracy. Otherwise, why would they have to fight in the Eastern Desolates? Moronu still couldn't help but doubt it. If the God Realm is really filled with desolate corpses, there's a possibility that the Desolates will be revived in any war. If they want to revive the Desolates, why not revive the strongest ones in the prehistoric continent? Xiang Sungwu asked. Maybe these Desolates are too strong and can't be revived. Or maybe the people above feel that they can't control these existences. Moronu speculated. These are all legends after all. It's still uncertain whether it's true or not. Don't take it seriously. Moronu nodded and immediately left. Hichu, do you think it's possible that this is true? Moronu immediately asked after entering Hichu Luo Shu. The reason why he didn't ask Hichu if he'd heard of this was because Hichu hadn't heard of it. Otherwise, he would have mentioned it to Moronu long ago. It's not impossible. However, if the God Realm is filled with Desolates' corpses, I might know the origins of these Desolates. There's really such an existence? Moronu was shocked. If that legend is true, those Desolates might be primal chaos bugs, also known as world-exterminating bugs. They exist in the endless primal chaos and are extremely strong. What they love to eat the most is any life form, as well as space. Once they discover any kind of world, they will devour those worlds, because this will help them increase their strength. Since they could destroy worlds, why doesn't the sovereign heaven kill them directly? Moronu asked doubtfully. In the endless primal chaos, not even the sovereign is a match for them. However, because of the sovereign, the world-exterminating bugs don't dare to wantonly attack worlds. If that legend is true, then something must have happened to the sovereign back then. That's why the world-exterminating bugs attacked and nearly destroyed the world. Only the master of primal chaos can completely destroy those world-exterminating bugs. At the same time, I have to tell you something. The world you're in isn't the first world to be born in the primal chaos. Before this world, there were countless civilizations. Those civilizations were all destroyed by the world-exterminating bugs. Even the sovereign was killed. Moronu's heart sank. In the beginning, he felt that the people who killed Zhao Yun were his strongest enemies. Once he killed them, he wouldn't have to worry about the world. Later, he learned that there were 10 sovereigns above the saints in this world, and above the sovereigns was the sovereign. At that time, he learned that the sovereigns and sovereigns were his strongest enemies. But now he knew that the sovereigns and sovereigns were nothing. His true enemies, including the enemies of this world, were the most terrifying. They were the world-exterminating bugs. The world-exterminating bugs like to eat worlds. In this world, only the sovereigns and sovereigns have the power to stop them. Once the sovereigns and sovereigns are killed, the world-exterminating bugs will charge in without restraint. Could it be that heaven created the heavenly punishment writ because he didn't have time to deal with the evildoers of the world? That he spent all his time on guard against the world-exterminating bugs? This thought suddenly appeared in Moronu's mind. After discussing the world-exterminating bugs with Hichu, Hichu decided to tell Moronu more about the world-exterminating bugs. However, the more he knew, the heavier Moronu's heart became. because he knew that the world-exterminating bugs of the primeval age and eternity age were nothing more than ordinary creatures among the world-exterminating bugs. Chapter 1082. How terrifying was desolation? Who could even kill sovereigns? No wonder even sovereigns were no match for desolation in the endless primal chaos. Only by relying on the power of the world could sovereigns resist desolation's attacks. Only with the existence of sovereigns could this world avoid being destroyed by desolation. However, sovereigns weren't omnipotent or invincible. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many civilizations before Murong-Yu's world were devoured by desolation. After receiving Hichu's confirmation, Murong-Yu was basically certain that the continents in the God realm were the corpses of desolation. However, would these desolations revive? He didn't know. It was only a 50-50 chance. Swish! Murong-Yu appeared in the primal chaos secret ground and walked straight into Lu Haotsong's hall. Don't tell me you're going to break through again? Lu Haotsong was sitting on a chair. When he saw Murong-Yu, he opened his eyes slightly and asked. Murong-Yu rolled his eyes. He wanted to break through again. However, he hadn't comprehended the chaotic celestial records to a higher level and couldn't break through. Old Lu, tell me honestly, what's the situation in the holy world? Are humans and demons mortal enemies in the holy world? Murong-Yu sat down and asked directly. Why are you asking this? Even if you know, it won't do you any good. Lu Haotsong glanced at him and said. Moreover, what Murong-Yu didn't know was that the difference between saints and gods wasn't just the difference in strength. Saints had abilities that gods didn't have. In the God realm, if gods talked about saints, the saints in the holy world would sense it. The stronger the saints were, the stronger their senses. If one could establish a relationship with the saints, they could even borrow the saints' power. This kind of borrowing was temporary. As long as the saints were willing, they could do it. If the saints in the God realm were ordinary people or good people, it wouldn't be a problem. But if you're an evil person, those saints will send down some disasters, and in the end, you will die suddenly. Therefore, most of the gods did not mention the name of the saints. He didn't even mention the word saint. Just like Xiang Sungwu and the others, when they spoke, they only pointed at the sky, or rather, the people above. Moreover, if a deity knew too much about a saint, a force would descend upon that person. It would cause a disaster for this person. This was why Lu Haotsong always said that it would not benefit him if Murong-Yu knew about the higher-ups. And if they knew some great secrets of the sacred world, the people of the God realm might die on the spot. No one could explain why, and no one knew what kind of power it was. Immediately, Lu Haotsong told these things to Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu was the only way he could leave the chaotic secret plane. He didn't want to die because Murong-Yu knew too much. In that case, he wouldn't be able to leave this chaotic secret plane for the rest of his life. Just say it. These things can't affect me. Murong-Yu said indifferently. He was originally a chaotic celestial body, so he had a great resistance to that kind of power. Moreover, he had Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang Cauldron. These super existences would naturally affect those inexplicable powers. However, Lu Haotsong still didn't say anything. In the end, Murong-Yu came back to life and couldn't help but shout, "Are you a man or not? You're so wishy-washy." If you don't say it, if those desolates in the God realm are really resurrected, the entire God realm will be destroyed. Even the sacred world will be destroyed. Lu Haotsong was immediately stunned. It was not because of Murong-Yu's sudden outburst, but because he heard about the resurrection of desolates. As an undead stage saint, he naturally knew more about desolates than the people of the God realm, because he knew that the legends about desolates in the God realm were not just legends, but real. Impossible. The human race and the demon race will work together to resurrect desolates? Lu Haotsong immediately denied after recovering from his shock. Why is it impossible? Murong-Yu sneered and told him about the strange things he found in the eastern wilderness. Lu Haotsong's face immediately darkened, because he also felt that Murong-Yu's words seemed to make some sense, in the sacred world, the human race and the demon race are mortal enemies. They have been mortal enemies for a long time. Why would they work together? Could it be? Lu Haotsong's face suddenly changed. Could it be what? Morong Yu hurriedly asked. Morong Yu, do you really want to know about the sacred world? Lu Haotsong didn't answer directly, but said solemnly. Morong Yu nodded. Lu Haotsong immediately fell silent, as if he was organizing his words. After a long time, he slowly opened his mouth in the sacred world, although there were as many forces as the sand in the Ganges. But in general, they were divided into 3 forces: the human race, the demon race, and the sacred world. Morong Yu frowned slightly. The human race and the demon race can be understood. But what is the sacred world? Lu Haotsong sneered. The sacred world is actually the human race, and there is no difference between them and the human race. It's just that they call themselves the sacred world. Arrogant and superior. Ignorant people. It seemed that Lu Haotsong didn't like the sacred world. Morong Yu was puzzled. You also know about the legend of desolates. The human race and the demon race in the sacred world were the saints who lived in the god world before. But because of desolates, they suffered heavy casualties, and the god world was almost destroyed. Therefore, they finally found the current sacred world. Before they ascended, there were natives in the sacred world. They were all humans, and each of them was a saint. They were very powerful. These original characters were very unhappy about ascending and sharing the resources that originally belonged to the sacred world. Therefore, they kept suppressing the human race and the demon race from the beginning. In the beginning, the human race and the demon race joined forces to resist. But because of desolates, the 2 races suffered heavy losses. Less than 1/10 of the original saints. And most of them were injured saints. Therefore, even if the 2 races joined forces, they were not the sacred ancestors' match at all. In the end, the human race and the demon race were almost exterminated by the sacred ancestor and were forced to live in exile in a remote place of the sacred world. Since the human race and the demon race joined forces, they should be friends and not enemies. Why are they mortal enemies now? Morong Yu asked puzzledly. Lu Haotsong sneered. This is because the demon race betrayed the human race and joined the sacred world. How could those arrogant and conceited sacred world really accept the demon race? They just want to separate and attack. Because of the demon race's betrayal, the human race was almost exterminated. And the demon race didn't end well and was almost exterminated by the sacred world. The current sacred world is still dominated by the sacred world. Although the human race and the demon race have developed for many years, they are still unable to compete with the sacred world. They can only struggle to survive in remote places. Morong Yu's face darkened. So the sacred world was like this. So what if they were immortal and indestructible? They might as well live happily in the divine world or the immortal world. Moreover, the human race has always been in internal strife and can't develop at all, let alone fight against the sacred world. The current human race can't even compare to the demon race. The demon race is much more united than the human race. The 4 great academies of the divine world should be controlled by 4 different human forces in the sacred world. Lu Haotsong felt anger, unwillingness, and a sense of exasperation. In other words, the people of the divine world are unable to ascend. It's not because of the human race, but because of the sacred world's interference? Morong Yu asked in a deep voice. Lu Haotsong nodded. With the bleak situation of a human race and demon race in the sacred world, they wanted nothing more than for all the humans and demons in the divine world to become saints. Why would they stop them from ascending? However, in the sacred world, the human race and demon race were the weaker race. As the natives of the sacred world's control far exceeded that of the human race and demon race. Therefore, they could interfere with the ascension of the human race and demon race. They could even kill them directly. If they didn't kill them, they would capture those who ascended and sell them as slaves. Therefore, although the human race had control, they couldn't allow more people to ascend. They could only try their best to leave some insights of the saints in the four great academies. As for those who didn't ascend from the four great academies, they couldn't do anything. Could it be that the human race and demon race are joining forces again to revive the eastern wilderness to fight against the sacred world? Murong Yu's brows flashed coldly. He was very resistant to such methods. Once the desolate world was revived, the divine world would definitely be destroyed. Moreover, whether the human race and demon race could control the desolate world was still a problem. In the end, the entire world might be destroyed. The human race, demon race, and sacred world would no longer exist. The human race and demon race aren't a match for the sacred world, even if they join forces. Unless a powerful expert appears in the human race and demon race, they can fight against the sacred world. Otherwise, even if the two races aren't destroyed, they can only struggle to survive in the sacred world forever. Lu Haotsong said helplessly. He seemed to recall his helpless life in the divine world. Therefore, reviving the desolate world might be the only way to fight against the sacred world. Murong Yu shook his head. He didn't agree at all. Fighting against the sacred world required the human race and demon race's own strength. They couldn't rely on a terrifying creature like the desolate world. Is there a way to stop the revival of the desolate world? Lu Haotsong shook his head. If this is really led by the human race and demon race, it's best that you don't interfere. Otherwise, you'll definitely die. Even if you succeed in stopping the revival of the desolate world, you won't have a place to stay when you ascend to the sacred world. Even if there's no place to stay, I will stop them from reviving the desolate world. Murong Yu's foundation was in the divine world, the immortal world, and the cultivation world. He definitely wouldn't allow the desolate world to destroy all of this. Old Lu, do your best to think of a way to destroy them for me. I'll leave first. Murong Yu's heart was heavy as he directly left the chaotic secret plane. Chapter 1083. The more he knew, the heavier Murong Yu's mood became. After leaving the chaotic secret ground, Murong Yu communicated with Fan Guo and the others. They all knew about the legend before the ancient times. But Murong Yu didn't tell them that the legend was true. He didn't tell anyone about the situation of the human race in the holy world. Murong Yu wasn't afraid of those inexplicable powers. But Fan Guo and the others didn't have any heaven-defying treasures like the Hichu Luo Shu. If they knew too much, they might really die suddenly. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't tell them for their own good. Hichu, if desolation really resurrects, will the Hichu Luo Shu be affected? Murong Yu asked in his mind. Desolation can affect the Hichu Luo Shu. If desolation really resurrects and the God realm is destroyed, you can enter. However, once the God realm collapses, the Hichu Luo Shu won't be affected, but there won't be heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Of course, you can absorb the power of chaos, space, and lightning, but the others can't. Murong Yu nodded slightly. He could still improve his realm and even ascend to the holy world in the future. But what about the others? Without heaven and earth Yuan Qi, they couldn't continue to improve their realm. In the end, they would only die from exhaustion. Of course, if Murong Yu could ascend before them, he could take them to the holy world. But what if desolation resurrects, and even the holy world can't resist it? In that case, even an undead saint would die. By the way, if the God realm collapses, won't secret planes like the chaotic secret plane collapse as well? Some of the secret grounds should also collapse. However, even if they don't collapse, they will be scattered in the turbulent space. Hichu said in a deep voice. It seems that we have to stop the war from continuing. Murong Yu's face showed a touch of worry. Stopping the war was easier said than done. With Murong Yu and Shengzhen's current strength, it was impossible. Even Primeval College might not be able to stop the war. The saints of the sacred world would never allow that. If anyone disobeyed the order, they would be killed immediately. Then, if Murong Yu wanted to stop the war, there was only one possibility: to control the heaven realm. As long as he controlled the heaven domain and the millions of quasi-saint in the heaven domain, he would be able to rule the entire God realm. This way, he would be able to stop the war. However, if that happened, the saints above would definitely be enraged. They would send down a torrential fury to kill Muronyu. In the future, when Muronyu ascended to the saints' world, there would be no place for him to stay. For myself, for my family, and for the people of the world, so what if I have to become enemies with the entire saints' world? Muronyu made up his mind. If I want to increase my strength quickly, I can only rely on the heaven's punishment token. Muronyu muttered. If you use the heaven's punishment token, the heavens might discover that you are a chaotic celestial body. You might be killed by the heavens before you succeed. Of course, this is your choice. I won't interfere. Hichu's voice sounded in Muronyu's ears. This matter didn't just concern Muronyu's life. It also concerned his family and the entire world. Therefore, Muronyu didn't make a decision immediately. Instead, he returned to Shenzhen. He gathered Zhao Jiqing, the 3 girls, and Murong Xian's group of 4. Zhao Jiqing's group of 7 looked at Muronyu in confusion. They didn't know why, but when they saw Murongyu's calm face, they felt a little nervous. Muronyu didn't say anything. His gaze quietly swept across the 7 people. When everyone felt stifled, he finally spoke. What if I tell you that this world is about to be destroyed? I can save this world, but if I want to save it, my life will be in great danger. It might even be destroyed before I can start saving it. What do you think I should do? The expressions of Zhao Jiqing's group of 7 changed drastically. What made them change their expressions wasn't that the world was about to be destroyed, but Murongyu's last sentence. Father, what's going on? Who wants to destroy the world? Murong Xian stood up and looked at Muronyu as he asked in a deep voice. Muronyu shook his head. He couldn't say it. Murong Xian and the others were still too weak. Once they found out about it, they would probably die a violent death. Moreover, Muronyu wasn't sure if the humans and demons above were really joining hands to revive desolation. I'm just saying if. Father, are you asking us to make a choice? If the world is really about to be destroyed, you can save it. This feeling is a good thing. That way, Father, you will be the greatest person in the world. But if you do it, you will put yourself in danger. If you succeed, everyone will be fine. If you fail, this world will be destroyed. Even if I succeed, it will still be dangerous. Muronyu added in his heart. Father, I think you should go save this world. Anyway, it's death either way. Who knows, you might succeed. Murong Xian said with a solemn expression. Muronyu smiled bitterly in his heart. If he didn't save them, even if the God realm collapsed, they would be fine. But in the future, he would have to watch his relatives exhaust their lifespans and leave him. What if I tell you that even if the world is about to be destroyed, I can protect you? Even if the world is destroyed, we will be fine. What will you choose? Everyone was silent. For a moment, they looked at each other, not knowing how to choose. Father, I think you should save the world. Murong Xian was still the same. Muronyu looked over. Tell me your reason. If the world is really about to be destroyed. Father, even if you can protect us in Shenzhen. But how many people can you protect? Although your sacred weapon is powerful, it is still different from the God realm. However, there are still some differences compared to the God world. There are no secret planes, no danger zones, and no adventures. Without the real world, without living beings, so what if we can live forever? I agree with fourth brother. Father, go save the world. Murong Xian said with a solemn expression at this time. Are all of you the same? Murong Yu's gaze slowly swept across everyone's faces. Everyone nodded. Good. If this world is really about to be destroyed, I will definitely save it. Murong Yu suddenly laughed. However, Zhao Jiqing and the others couldn't laugh. Each of them had a solemn expression. What's wrong with you? It's not like the world is about to be destroyed. It's just a hypothesis. Murong Yu laughed and said. At the same time, he communicated with the river diagram in his mind. What do you think? Once my identity is exposed and I'm killed by the heavens or someone else, you must take them into the world of the river diagram and the book of Luo no matter what. Even if they are lonely in the Hichu Luo Shu for the rest of their lives, I don't want them to be destroyed. The reason why he gave this order to Hichu was that once he died, Hichu would immediately fall into a deep sleep. However, with Hichu's ability, it was possible for him to keep Zhao Jiqing and the others in the Hichu Luoshu world before he fell into a deep sleep. I will do my best. After a few months of reuniting with Shengzhen and the others, Murongyu returned to the East Continent. It was worth mentioning that Lan had been captured by the Lan family. It was said that she was going to undergo special training. Therefore, Murongyu didn't see her when he returned. As for Murongyu's favorite disciple, Xiao Xian, she had joined Shengzhen's team long ago and became one of the 100,000 powerhouses. With her ability to hide, although she hadn't reached the level of a heavenly master, if the quasi-saint didn't appear, a heavenly master wouldn't be able to discover her. Moreover, Murongyu had placed many teleportation points on her. Once she was in danger, he could rush over immediately. As soon as he walked out of the Hichu Luoshu, Murongyu realized that the holy city was shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere. Murongyu was shocked and thought that the demon clan's army was coming. However, when he spread out his divine thought, he didn't find anything. With a thought, Murongyu left the holy city. Then, he went to a few places. However, the oppressive atmosphere was still there. Is the eastern wilderness really going to be revived? Murongyu's heart was heavy. He and Fantong had felt this oppressive atmosphere on the battlefield before. However, now, the entire eastern wilderness could feel it. Fantong, what's wrong these days? Murongyu found Fantong and asked. The feeling that something is wrong is getting stronger. You can feel it too. The oppressive atmosphere is covering the entire eastern wilderness, Fantong said with a serious expression. Fantong, leave the eastern wilderness and return to the floating mountain, Murongyu said after thinking for a while. Fantong was stunned and then shook his head. This is a battlefield. How can a disciple of the Fan family go back? Murongyu sighed in his heart. Once the eastern wilderness was revived, everything in the eastern wilderness would become food for the eastern wilderness. However, he could not tell anyone about this. Once he told them, it would not be for their own good. It would be harming them. Murongyu, do you know something? Fantong sized up Murongyu. Although Murongyu looked calm, Fantong still felt something. What could it be? I just feel that something is wrong with the eastern wilderness. So, I'm preparing to withdraw Shengzhen's disciples. Fantong shook his head and said with a smile, maybe it's because too many people have died. You don't have to worry too much. By the way, although something is wrong with the eastern wilderness, some good things have appeared in the past few days. As he spoke, a blood-red crystal the size of a pinky appeared in Fantong's hand. It was transparent. There's nothing special about it. Murongyu glanced at it. This blood-red crystal did not contain any powerful energy, nor did it have any special waves. This crystal is called a blood crystal. It can increase one's comprehension. Fantong looked at Murongyu and said calmly, What? Murongyu was shocked. What he needed most now was comprehension. Otherwise, he would not have thought of using the heavenly punishment token to increase his cultivation. Chapter 1084. It would take a long time to comprehend the deeper level of the records of chaotic celestial bodies. However, if one's power of understanding could be greatly increased, it would speed up the process of comprehension. The reason why the Heaven's Punishment Order could directly increase Murongyu's level was because of the Heaven's Punishment Order. The Heaven's Punishment Order could greatly increase Murongyu's power of understanding and allow him to break through in a short period of time. If the blood crystal could also increase a person's power of understanding, Murongyu wouldn't need to risk being discovered by the heavens to use the Heaven's Punishment Order. How much power of understanding can a blood crystal increase? How long can it last? Murongyu is instantly excited. The increase in power of understanding and the duration depends on the quality of the blood crystal. The higher the quality, the higher the power of understanding and the longer the duration. However, it is said that even the lowest quality blood crystal can double a person's power of understanding. Fantong immediately explained. Double a person's power of understanding. This was no different from getting twice the result with half the effort. Originally, a person could only comprehend and break through in 100 eras. However, after using the blood crystal, one would only need 500 eras to break through in a short period of time. To those who were nearing the end of their lifespan, this was definitely the most precious thing. In fact, the higher the level of the blood crystal, the more precious it was to a person. For example, a rank 10 quasi-saint was limited by his power of understanding and couldn't comprehend and break through in a long time. However, if he had the blood crystal to increase his power of understanding, he could comprehend, break through, and ascend. Where can I find this blood crystal? Is there a lot of it? Murong Yu's eyes shone brightly. If there were a lot of these blood crystals, he would only accept blood crystals as payment for his consultation fees in the future. A piece of blood crystal was much more precious than the Holy Grade Mountain and Holy Grade artifacts. It is only found in the East Wilderness. This is something that has never been found in the realm of the gods. However, it's extremely rare, and I had to resort to all sorts of methods to get my hands on this small piece. Fan Tong sighed in disappointment. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Only in the East Wilderness? Is it because of the war? The blood crystal wasn't just because it was blood red, but also because it emitted a faint smell of blood. It was as though it was a crystal formed by blood. That was why they were called blood crystals. There are very few blood crystals, and the functions of the blood crystals have already spread throughout the entire Eastern Wilderness. Those quasi-saint level experts are all searching. Fan Tong shook his head, a helpless look on his face. There were not many blood crystals to begin with, and now that so many people were searching for them, the chances of obtaining blood crystals had become extremely slim. Moreover, everyone knew the use of the blood crystal. It was something that could not be bought with money. Once a blood crystal appeared, countless experts would fight for it. Blood crystals have only been found on the battlefield. Was it really related to the war? Was it condensed from the blood of countless experts? It said that although the blood crystal has a heaven-defying ability to increase comprehension, it also contains a terrifying, murderous aura. Baleful Chi. Murong Yu frowned slightly. He took the blood crystal the size of a pinky from Fan Tong's hand and extended his divine sense to cover it. However, other than the faint smell of blood, he did not sense any murderous aura. Not long ago, an immemorial god realm powerhouse obtained a blood crystal. He thought that he could take the opportunity to advance to the heavenly master level. However, the moment he used the blood crystal, he was attacked by the terrifying murderous aura. In the end, his body exploded and he died. This kind of thing has happened many times. Moreover, other people who have used the blood crystal also said that the blood crystal contains murderous aura. Because of this, many people think that the blood crystal is condensed from the blood on the battlefield. Murong Yu nodded. After understanding more from Fan Tong, he returned to Saint City. After instructing Wen Ling and the rest to guard outside Saint City, he quickly left Saint City and rushed into the battlefield. The Eastern Wilderness was huge, and so was the battlefield. If it was in the past, once the two tribes met, they would immediately attack and kill the other party. However, because of the blood crystal, many people were on the battlefield. Countless people lingered around the battlefield. Even if they saw the enemy, they would not attack. This was because everyone wanted to find the blood crystal. To them, finding the blood crystal and advancing to the next level was more important than the war. Murong Yu also extended his divine sense to search the battlefield. However, he was disappointed that he did not find any blood crystals even after a few months. In fact, he had never heard of anyone finding a blood crystal. Even if someone found out, they wouldn't publicize it. Instead, they would hide it secretly. I'm afraid there are no more than 1,000 blood crystals in the entire battlefield. Including those that had not been exposed, it was probably less than $2,000. However, there are more than 2,000 trillion experts from the human tribe and the demon tribe in the Eastern Wilderness. Murong Yu pondered as he flew. He decided to search for a while longer. If he still couldn't find anything, he could only use the heavenly punishment token to increase his cultivation. At this moment, his divine will suddenly discovered a flash of blood-red light. Could it be blood crystals? Muronyu suddenly felt a burst of excitement in his heart. In a flash, he had already shot toward the location of the bloody light. Blood crystal! Ha ha! Muronyu hadn't flown over yet. A loud laugh came from afar. When he took a closer look, a middle-aged man had already appeared near the bloody light. At this moment, he was holding a blood-red crystal that was the size of a pinky finger in his hand. What else could it be if it wasn't a blood crystal? Muronyu was instantly enraged. He was the one who found the blood crystal first, but the middle-aged man snatched it away. Hand over the blood crystal. Muronyu went closer and looked at the middle-aged man who was laughing gloomily. At this moment, Muronyu realized that the man was a quasi-saint. His strength had far surpassed his. The middle-aged man was from the human tribe. After obtaining the blood crystal, he was extremely excited. However, he suddenly heard Muronyu's words. He was instantly shocked as he thought that someone who was more powerful than him had found it. However, when he saw Muronyu, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. A heavenly emperor realm little fellow actually asked him to hand over the blood crystal? Did he hear it wrongly? Kid, you asked me to hand over the blood crystal? The middle-aged quasi-saint looked at Muronyu with a ferocious look on his face. I found a blood crystal first, so it naturally belongs to me. Even if he was a quasi-saint, he wasn't afraid. Get lost, the quasi-saint roared. He flipped his hand and slapped at Muronyu. Terrifying energy exploded and tore the sky and earth apart. If Muronyu was hit by this slap, he would definitely die. Ha! Blood crystal. The despicable human tribe is having an internal conflict again. At this moment, a towering demonic aura rushed towards the horizon and approached rapidly. Before the person got close, a disgusting laugh came from afar. Swoosh! Muronyu's body swayed and disappeared on the spot. He had already entered the Hichu Luoshu world. At the same time, the quasi-saint from the demon tribe had already rushed over. You humans don't have the right to use the blood crystal. It all belongs to the demon tribe. The quasi-saint from the demon tribe rushed over and stretched out a furry claw to grab the quasi-saint from the human tribe. The human tribe expert sneered and kept the blood crystal in his storage space. Then, he exploded with powerful energy and started fighting the quasi-saint from the demon tribe. Both of them were rank 3 quasi-saint, and their strength was similar. However, Muronyu, who had entered the Hichu Luoshu world, controlled the Hichu Luoshu to retreat quickly. The battle between the two quasi-sages was truly earth-shattering, causing the sun and moon to lose their light. The most terrifying thing was that even the space was shattered and the space was turbulent. If Muronyu were to stay here, there was a chance that he'd be sucked into the chaotic space. Boom, boom, boom. The two quasi-saints fought wildly. In Muronyu's eyes, every time they exchanged blows, the space around them would collapse from the force of their collision. Streams of turbulent space continuously shot out like tongues of fire. The two of them fought as they walked. They didn't want to be swept into the turbulent space. Our strength is about the same. Although it's terrifying, it's impossible to determine the victor in a short time. Heh, you dare to steal my blood crystal. You're really courting death. In the Hichu Luoshu, Muronyu's eyes flashed coldly, and his killing intent surged. With a thought, Muronyu returned to the holy city. Yangqin, Zhuoqiuqing, come with me. Yangqin and Zhuoqiuqing, who were guarding the holy city, were resting with their eyes closed when they suddenly heard Muronyu's words. Then a powerful force acted on them. The two of them didn't resist at all. With a swoosh, they disappeared from their original spot and reappeared in the Hichu Luoshu world. Muronyu didn't have time to say anything to them. He only sent 2 beams of divine light into their bodies and told them in detail what had happened earlier. At the same time, Muronyu had already reappeared in the battlefield where he found the blood crystal. Swoosh! Swoosh! Yangqin and Zhuoqiuqing immediately appeared in the Hichu Luoshu world. However, there was no one fighting on the battlefield. The two of them didn't hesitate at all and flew in different directions. However, what puzzled them was that they could still see the energy waves left behind by the two quasi-saints' battle. However, the two of them had already disappeared. They're gone. Murong-Yu walked out of the Hichu Luoshu world with a puzzled expression on his face. Only a few breaths had passed since he left and reappeared. How far could the two rank 3 quasi-saints escape in a few breaths' time? Could they have been killed by someone else? If the other party was a rank 10 quasi-saint, he could easily kill the two rank 3 quasi-saints. However, Murong-Yu didn't sense any new aura in the void. Aura. Murong-Yu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately followed the aura left behind by the two rank 3 quasi-saints' auras. Not long after, he suddenly realized that the aura of the two rank 3 quasi-saints' auras had disappeared into thin air. Could they have been sucked into the turbulent space? Murong-Yu was puzzled. He stepped into the air and arrived at the place where the two rank 3 quasi-saints had disappeared. Swoosh! However, when he arrived at that area, an extremely strong force acted on his body. Then, before he could react, he disappeared from Yangqin and Zhuqiuqing's sight with a swoosh. Chapter 1085. Holy Lord! Yangqin and Zhuqiuqing were shocked when they saw Murong-Yu vanish from their sight in an instant. They immediately cried out in surprise and stretched out their hands to grab at the space in front of them. However, apart from grabbing a ball of air, they didn't grab anything. Their enormous divine consciousness spread out in all directions like a tide. Instantly, everything within a radius of billions of miles was under their control. They saw many things, but the only thing they didn't see was Murong-Yu. Is there something strange there? Yangqin and Zhuqiuqing exchanged a glance, and then they both walked over. Zhuqiuqing, stay here. If there's something wrong there, and even I vanish, return to the holy city. At the same time, report this matter to the Holy Mother and the others. Yangqin suddenly stopped Zhuqiuqing when they were halfway there. The Holy Mother was naturally Zhao Jiqing. Only Zhao Jiqing had such an honor in Shenzhen. When Murong-Yu wasn't in Shenzhen, everything in Shenzhen was managed by Zhao Jiqing. Therefore, once Murong-Yu vanished, they could only tell Zhao Jiqing and let her take charge. Zhuqiuqing stood up and nodded solemnly. Then, Yangqin walked over. When she arrived at the place where Murong-Yu had vanished, a strong force immediately acted on her. Yangqin instantly vanished from Zhuqiuqing's sight. This time, Zhuqiuqing saw it clearly. She discovered that Yangqin had vanished into thin air. It was as if she'd been directly teleported to another place. Zhuqiuqing frowned slightly and stood where she was without leaving. However, she knew that although Murong-Yu had vanished, he wasn't dead. She had Murong-Yu's soul jade slip in her possession. Most importantly, she was under Murong-Yu's control. If Murong-Yu were to die, her control over him would immediately be removed. She didn't feel anything wrong with her body. What's the situation? When Murong-Yu stepped into the void, he felt an incomparably powerful force acting on him. His first thought was to enter the Hichu Luoshu world. However, just as he thought about it, he found himself in an unfamiliar space. There were no stars, no sun, no blue sky, and no white clouds. There was only a dusky sky. Looking around, everything else was the same as the God realm. Did we enter another secret plane? Murong-Yu's eyes flashed with doubt. He extended his spirit's sense, wanting to scan everything around him. However, what made him depressed was that his spiritual will was not as strong as when he was an immortal. In fact, his divine will could only cover a radius of 5,000 kilometers at most. To a heavenly emperor realm powerhouse, one step could cross who knows how many tens of thousands of miles of distance. Even his strength is being suppressed. After discovering that his spiritual will had been suppressed, Murong-Yu immediately felt his strength. The result was no different from what he had expected. His strength was greatly suppressed. Murong-Yu's current strength was probably equivalent to a true god or heavenly god in the God realm. However, what made Morong Yu feel slightly comforted was that although his spiritual will and strength were suppressed here, the strength of his physical body was not suppressed. With his physical body that had reached the level of a supreme artifact, he was almost invincible in the god realm. If this is an unexplored secret area, then Morong Yu chuckled in his heart. He immediately unfurled his angelic wings, spread his divine sense to its limits, and flew forward at high speed. How is this possible? After a while, Morong Yu retracted his angel's wings and descended from the sky. This was because he was shocked to find that during the process of flying, his strength was being depleted by 10 times. After flying for less than 100,000 kilometers, his strength was already depleted by 10%. However, with the power of his 3 godheads, the depleted strength could be easily replenished. However, Morong Yu found that the strength he absorbed here was different from the vitality of heaven and earth in the god realm. It carried an extremely violent killing intent. Morong Yu did not absorb much of this killing intent, but made him a little frustrated, and his character became irritable. He even had an impulse to kill someone. The vitality of heaven and earth actually contains a huge amount of killing intent. After Morong Yu absorbed a few more strands of vitality of heaven and earth, he immediately confirmed that the killing intent here was serious. Could it be that the gray sky is shrouded by the killing intent? Morong Yu looked up at the sky. Then he closed the 1 billion pores on his body. The power of space and the drifting power of thunder and lightning here all contained a huge amount of killing intent. However, Morong Yu did not need to absorb this power at all. Because the roots of the tree of life were rooted in the chaos space, he only needed to absorb the chaos space. Spreading his angel's wings again, Morong Yu flew up to the sky again. Although the consumption of strength was terrifying, with the ability of the tree of life, it was enough to maintain balance. Boom, boom, boom. Morong Yu did not fly for long before he heard a series of loud roars in front of him. Waves of incomparably powerful energy fluctuations came from afar. Someone is fighting. Morong Yu flew over. From afar, he saw a surge of monster aura. Then, he saw the 2 people who were in the middle of the fight. When he saw the 2 people clearly, Morong Yu was instantly amused. Weren't the 2 people from the human clan and the monster clan fighting the 2 rank 3 quasi-saint who had disappeared previously? These 2 idiots had also entered this secret plane. Moreover, what made Morong Yu the funniest was that these 2 people's realms were similar to his. They seemed to be in the heavenly god or the true god realm. I wonder how it feels to be a quasi-saint who can only exert the strength of a heavenly god. Morong Yu thought in his heart, but he had already flown towards the 2 people. When he was in the realm of the gods, when the 2 of them were fighting, he did not dare to get close. This was because the shock waves from their battle were enough to kill him. Even if he was in the Hichu, Luoshu world, he could be thrown into the space turbulence. However, now that the 2 people's strength was similar to Morong Yu's, they could not hurt Morong Yu at all. Moreover, they could not even break the space, let alone throw Morong Yu into the turbulent space turbulence. Morong Yu hovered above the 2 quasi-saints' heads and looked down at them and said in a deep voice, "Both of you, how does it feel to fall from the quasi-saints' level to the heavenly god realm?" Perhaps because they valued their strength, the 2 quasi-saints fought on the ground even when they were fighting. However, before Morong Yu came over, the 2 quasi-saints were in a sorry state. Their hair was disheveled and the clothes on their faces were all torn apart, revealing ghastly wounds that were so deep that their bones could be seen. Streams of God's blood spurted out continuously, as if they were gangsters fighting on the streets of the mortal world. Hearing Morong Yu's voice, the 2 quasi-saints were shocked. When they saw Morong Yu hovering in the air, they couldn't help but sneer. They knew that the chi of heaven and earth here contained a terrifying, murderous aura and consumed a lot of energy. If they wanted to recover their strength, they had to absorb it slowly. Flying was the most energy-consuming method. Therefore, they did not fly. Therefore, when they saw Morong Yu flying, they sneered in disdain. "Give me the blood crystal, and I will spare your lives. Otherwise, this strange space will be the burial ground of the two quasi-saints. Murong hovered in the void and looked at the two quasi-saints indifferently as he said in a cold voice. At this moment, Murong felt very good. Threatening two rank 3 quasi-saints with the strength of a heavenly emperor? Moreover, he did not have anything to rely on. In the realm of the gods, who would dare to do so? The only exception was Murong. You're courting death. The sage-to-be of the human clan roared at once. He threw a punch at Murong. If we were in the realm of the gods outside, perhaps I would run away when I see you. But here, killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. As he spoke, Murong's figure swayed and flew down. At the same time, he threw a punch. Boom! The two fists fiercely bombarded together, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. An incomparably terrifying impact swept out in all directions like a tidal wave. Immediately, Murong and the human quasi-saints were sent flying. This is so infuriating. The human quasi-saint was sent flying a few hundred miles away, while the Murong only retreated a few dozen miles before stopping. From this, it could be seen that Murong's strength was above his. He was a quasi-saint. Therefore, when he saw this scene, he immediately roared. In the midst of his roar, the human quasi-saint attacked again. Like a stream of light, he rushed to Murong and threw a punch. A rank 3 quasi-saint is only SOSO. Murong smiled indifferently. He took a step forward and threw another punch. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, the human quasi-saint's entire body was sent flying. However, Murong just stood on the spot. His body did not even tremble. Previously, Murong had only used his strength. Now, Murong had unleashed the strength of his body. His body was at the level of a legendary weapon. So what if his opponent was a quasi-saint? He was still sent flying with a punch. Murong was exhilarated. Who else could send a rank 3 quasi-saint flying with a punch like him? No one in the entire realm of the gods. Hand over the blood crystal, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you'll die. Murong stepped forward step by step. Every step was the same distance as he slowly closed in on the human quasi-saint. Don't even think about it. The human quasi-saint was furious. He roared and charged forward again. However, he was once again sent flying with a punch from Murong. Moreover, this time, Murong's strength was much stronger than before. He broke both of the quasi-saint's hands. In the realm of the gods, broken hands could be repaired with just a thought. However, it consumed a lot of energy here. In order to repair the broken hands, a large amount of energy had to be consumed. Moreover, Murong did not give him any time to repair his hands. Chapter 1086. Boom! Just as Quasi-Saint was pushed back, Murong rushed in front of him and punched him hard. Although they were in the same realm, Murong's speed and physical body were many times stronger than Quasi-Saint's. Therefore, he arrived in front of Quasi-Saint in a single step. After a loud thud, Quasi-Saint screamed in agony and was sent flying. A violent force slammed into his body. In an instant, his entire body was blasted open with many ghastly wounds that looked like spider webs. Blood splattered like a fountain. However, this time, Murong did not attack. Instead, he stood where he was and stared coldly at Quasi-Saint, who was lying on the ground in the distance. Hand over the blood crystal, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, this day next year will be your death anniversary. The demi-saint of the human race was furious. However, he could not do anything about the suppression of power in this strange space. He, a quasi-saint, had become a punching bag for a sky emperor. In fact, in this space, even if Murong was only in the heaven god realm, he could still beat quasi-saint until he cried for his parents. He was unwilling to give up, but he could feel Murong's terrifying murderous intent. If he did not hand over the blood crystal, he would be killed by Murong. By then, everything he had, including his life, will be taken away by Murong. Damn it. If we meet outside, you'll definitely die, Quasi-Saint took out the blood crystal and threw it to Murongyu in order to save his life. However, his face was filled with resentment. Inwardly, he was gnashing his teeth, wishing he could slap Murongyu to death. I've said that I won't allow anyone to touch my things. Murongyu checked the blood crystal and kept it in his Hichu Luo shoe after confirming that there was nothing wrong with it. You can leave now. Murongyu looked at him calmly. He was not afraid of him in this space at all. In the realm of the gods, he was even less afraid. Stay here. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan was about to leave, but Murongyu looked at him and said coldly. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan's face instantly darkened. I have no feud with you. What do you want? Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan did not leave, nor did he attack. In terms of speed, he was not as fast as Murongyu. In terms of strength, he was no match for Murongyu. Therefore, he could not escape. He was like a fish on the chopping board. No feud? Have you forgotten that the two tribes are at war now? Cut the crap and hand over your storage ring, or die. This was a great opportunity. If he did not take advantage of it, Murongyu would feel sorry for himself. Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan looked at Murongyu with hatred. Finally, he took off his storage ring and handed it to Murongyu. Then, he quickly left. A blood crystal should not be of much use. This should be the first time this secret land has appeared. Let's explore it first. Murongyu thought for a while after the two Quasi-Saint of the Monster Clan left. Then, he also left. Along the way, Murongyu did not encounter any powerful ferocious beasts. Even the ferocious beasts that he encountered were only real gods and heavenly gods. It seemed that the heavenly god realm was the highest realm in this space. However, during this process, Murongyu discovered that although the ferocious beast realms were not high, their physical bodies were generally stronger than the gods in the realm of the gods. The ferocious beast bodies were at least of lower grade divine weapon level. Murongyu even saw some middle grade divine weapons and even upper grade divine weapon level ferocious beasts. Could it be that this space only focuses on the cultivation of the physical body? That's right. Since I can't increase my realms, I can only increase the cultivation of the physical body, Murongyu thought to himself. Unknowingly, he had already flown a long distance away. For the ferocious beasts whose realms were not high, their crystal cores were useless to Murongyu. Hence, other than killing a few ferocious beasts to test the strength of their physical bodies, Murongyu did not take any action. He did not come across any valuable universe treasure. However, he came across quite a number of divine materials and divine fruits. It was a pity that the divine materials and divine fruits were tainted with an enormous amount of ferocious chi. The medicinal properties had already disappeared. Even if Murongyu used them, it would be useless. All of a sudden, Murongyu abruptly came to a stop. This was because he saw a village not far away in front of him. The village was not big, with a population of about a few hundred. There are actually humans living in this secret realm. Murongyu even saw children playing in the village. He was immediately shocked. This was the first time he had encountered humans living in the secret realm. It was also the first time he had heard of it. However, the appearance of humans told Murongyu that this secret realm was definitely not ordinary. Immediately, Murongyu descended from the sky and strode toward the village. Stop! Before he got close to the village, a loud roar came from the bushes next to him. Then, two giant men walked out of the bushes with a murderous aura. Murongyu was not surprised by this, because he had already discovered the existence of these two men. They should be the patrollers of this village. Who are you? Two large men rushed out from the thicket and stood in front of Murongyu like two small mountains. Their voices were filled with energy, causing Murongyu's blood and chi to become restless. Two high-grade divine artifact-level bodies. Murongyu glanced at them and saw the realm of their bodies. However, his cultivation realm was the same as those fierce beasts. They were only in the divine realm. You too, I'm just a passerby. I saw a village here and wanted to rest here. You also know that there are many fierce beasts outside. Moronyu said to the two giant men with a smile on his face. "Oh, I see. Then please enter our Xiong village. The fierce beasts outside are fierce. It's really dangerous to wander outside alone." One of the two giant men scratched his head and smiled at Moronyu. Then, he made a gesture of invitation. "Gukai." At this moment, another burly man shouted at the gigantic man with a silly smile, who was called Gukai. "Big brother Yin, I don't think this brother is a bad person. The fierce beasts outside are really fierce. If he gets hurt, I'll feel bad." Gukai looked at Big brother Yin and scratched his head. "You believe him just because he said a few words? What if he's a spy from a hostile tribe? You don't care about the safety of the village." Big brother Yin Lai, said in a deep voice. "Big brother Yin, I feel that he's not a bad person." Gukai still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Yin Lai. "Brother, it's not that our Xiong village doesn't welcome you. There are just too many enemies now. You should leave this place before it gets dark." Yin Lai turned his head to look at Moronyu and urged him to leave. Moronyu was helpless, but he did not say anything. This was because ever since he cultivated the Shi character formula, he could see through the hearts of others. Whether it was Gukai or Yin Lai, they were not bad people, and they did not have any ill intentions towards Moronyu. However, as Yin Lai said, Moronyu came at the wrong time. Since they were not bad people, Moronyu did not want to have any conflict with them. After all, this was the first village he saw here, and he still needed to learn more about this space from him. Immediately, he was about to leave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, just as Moronyu was about to leave, 3 ear-piercing sounds pierced through the air, bringing with them a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. Immediately, Moronyu's expression changed. This was because he felt that he was being targeted. Moronyu knew that the enemies of Xiong village had thought that he was from Xiong village and had been ambushed. He immediately turned around and looked behind him. 3 streaks of black light pierced through the void and shot over at lightning speed. Moronyu snorted coldly, took a step forward, and punched at the black light that was shooting towards him. "Don't block it with your hands. The crossbow arrow is poisonous." Seeing this, Gukai immediately roared. At the same time, he pulled out a machete that was taller than Moronyu and slashed at the black light that was shooting towards him. Since Gukai shouted, it was obvious that these poisons were also fatal to people of their level. However, Moronyu was not afraid. He did not believe that the crossbow arrow could hurt his body that had reached the level of a great divine artifact. Boom! Moronyu's fist landed on the crossbow bolt. After a furious roar, the incoming crossbow arrow was directly shattered. Moronyu, on the other hand, remained motionless in his original position. On the other side, Gukai and Yin Lai also unleashed their strength and knocked away the 2 crossbow arrows that were shooting towards them. TSK, the trash of Xiong village really have some strength. At this moment, a group of hundreds of people came out of the bushes in front of them and looked at Moronyu and the other 2 with disdain. "It's the people of High Sun Village." Yin Lai's face suddenly became gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. At the same time, Gukai roared. After hearing Gukai's roar, the people of Xiong village behind them were in chaos. At the same time, a large group of men rushed out, each of them holding strange weapons and looking at the people of High Sun village with murderous intent. "Miang, what are you doing here?" Yin Lai stepped out and looked at the young man who was leading the other side with a serious expression. It was this person who spoke before. "Of course, I'm here to subdue you. Will you submit or be exterminated? You must make a choice today. Otherwise, Xiong village will cease to exist after today." "Brother Miang, didn't you say that you would only kill all their men? Just take the women back and use them as sex slaves." A wretched young man from High Sun village stood out and looked coldly at Moronyu and the others with murderous intent. At the same time, he looked at the women of Xiong village behind Moronyu and the others with a lewd expression. Chapter 1087. In the Blood Crystal World, everything was like the beginning of human civilization. There wasn't the current situation where the various forces were segregated, and there wasn't an overlord who ruled over a part of the world. Here, Everything was based on tribes. The so-called tribe was, in fact, a race. Every tribe was different in size. For example, a village-level tribe like Sunny Creek Village was not the smallest. Some tribes only had a few dozen people, or even a few people. Of course, in the Blood Crystal world, the large tribes were not inferior to the super forces in the God Realm. Their numbers were even higher. Those large tribes had developed over a long period of time, swallowing other tribes, and finally forming their current size. The bigger the tribe, the more power the higher-ups in the tribe had. Therefore, these higher-ups constantly pursued greater power and swallowed other tribes to strengthen their own tribe. As for High Sun Village, it was not considered a tribe. However, it was much stronger than Sunny Creek Village. They had been eyeing Sunny Creek Village for a long time. However, the warriors of Sunny Creek Village were not vegetarians. They were strong and had repelled High Sun Village's attacks several times. However, High Sun Village had not given up on Sunny Creek Village. Now, they were attacking again. Hearing the vulgar young man's words, the men of Sunny Creek Village were furious. Gukai, in particular, was furious. If Yanlai had not held him down, he would have pounced on them. Miyang did not say anything. He only glanced at the vulgar young man, took a few steps forward, and looked at Gukai and the others indifferently. Finally, his gaze stopped on Morongyu. This little bastard is the helper you found? He doesn't look bad. However, if you don't submit today, all of you will die. Morongyu's eyes flashed with a cold, killing intent. However, he did not make a move. He wanted to see what these people would do next. Big brother Yin, let me kill these bastards. Gukai roared, his eyes spitting fire. Obviously, he did not like Miyang and the others. You are not his match. Yin Lai held Gukai down and looked at Miyang with a gloomy face. Impossible. I almost killed him last time. Today, I can still defeat and even kill him. Gukai roared. His fleshly body has already reached the level of supreme-grade divine artifact. In our area, no one is his match. Yin Lai's eyes flickered as he finally spoke. Hearing this, everyone in Sunny Creek Village couldn't help but gasp. In Sunny Creek Village, Yin Lai and Gukai were their strongest warriors. Their bodies had reached the level of a high-grade divine artifact. A body at the level of a high-grade divine artifact would be considered a powerhouse in this area. He was even stronger than the strongest warrior of Gaoyang Village, Miyang. It was because of this that they were able to repel High Sun Village's attacks time and time again. However, Miyang's body had reached the level of supreme-grade god artifact. Low-grade, middle-grade, high-grade, supreme-grade, peerless-grade, saint-grade. This was the division of realms in the Blood Crystal world. Unlike the 10 realms in the Divine world, the Blood Crystal world only had 6 realms. In an ordinary tribe, those who could reach the upper stage were already considered strong. Those who reached the level of a supreme grade were considered experts in the Blood Crystal world. Those who reached the level of a supreme grade were treated with the utmost respect in the super tribes. They were at the level of an ancestor. As for the Saint grade, it was the strongest realm in the Blood Crystal world. According to legends, there was no one at this level in the entire Blood Crystal world. It was easy to imagine how rare and powerful such existences were. Similarly, the tribes in the Blood Crystal world were also divided into 6 levels. They were respectively low grade, middle grade, and high grade. It was the same division as their realms. The level of a tribe depended on the level of a powerhouse who was in charge of the tribe and was recognized by the nearby tribes. For example, Sunny Creek Village had Yin Lai and Gu Kai, 2 high-grade powerhouses. Their strength was recognized by the nearby tribes. Therefore, although Sunny Creek Village wasn't big, it was still an upper-grade tribe. Gaoyang Village was much bigger than Sunny Creek Village. However, it was only an upper-grade tribe. However, now that Miyang had broken through to the level of supreme grade, with his strength, he could lead the warriors of Gaoyang Village to sweep the nearby area. By then, all the low-grade, middle-grade, and high-grade tribes in the nearby area would be conquered by him. By then, even if no one recognized him, Gaoyang Village would become a supreme-grade tribe and develop. It was obvious that Sunny Creek Village was Mi Yang's first target after breaking through. Haha, our #1 warrior of Gaoyang village broke through to the level of a supreme grade a few days ago. Kids of Sunny Creek Village, hurry up and submit. Otherwise, after today, you will no longer exist and will all be wiped out. One of the warriors of Gaoyang village laughed loudly. No wonder Mi Young only brought so few people this time. With his strength, defeating Sunny Creek Village was more than enough. The faces of the people of Sunny Creek Village were extremely gloomy and murderous. Sunny Creek Village will never submit to Gaoyang Village. We will fight to the death. Gukai roared and looked at Mi Yang ferociously. If that's the case, then I'll experience the strength of warrior Gukai. Mi Yang walked over slowly and looked at Gukai with disdain. Big brother Yin, let me go. I want to kill this son of a bitch. Gukai obviously didn't like Mi Yang. Yin Lai sighed and let go in the end. The people of Sunny Creek Village would rather die than submit. Dying in battle was the best ending for them. I'll let you have 3 moves. Seeing Gukai walk over with murderous intent, Mi Yang said indifferently. He didn't put Gukai in his eyes at all. Gukai was enraged. He stomped the ground with his foot and charged at Mi Yang with all his might. His right hand's divine fist exploded with a dazzling divine light and fiercely smashed towards Mi Yang's head. Mi Yang sneered in disdain, and with a sliding step, he retreated. He directly dodged Gukai's attack, causing it to hit the air. A powerful force suddenly erupted, causing the air to explode, making a glaring explosion sound. After missing his punch, Gukai roared and charged forward again. However, the gap between the two was huge. Mi Yang didn't fight back at all and dodged Gukai's attack in the blink of an eye. Murongyu, on the other hand, couldn't stop frowning as he watched. Gukai and Mi Yang's attacks were too shallow, just relying on the power of their bodies. They didn't know how to use their cultivation. They didn't even have any exquisite moves. If it was Murongyu, even if his realm was lower than Mi Yang's, Mi Yang definitely wouldn't be able to dodge his attack. These people all have powerful bodies. Maybe it's because they are restricted by this world, but their cultivation realm can increase. But with their physical strength, once they leave this world and appear in the God realm, their strength will definitely increase rapidly. A powerful body and a powerful realm, this will be an extremely terrifying battle power. Murongyu thought in his heart. At this time, the 3 moves had already passed. It's my turn. Mi Yang roared. He stomped on the ground, creating an incomparably huge crater. His whole body flew over like an eagle pouncing on its prey, crashing straight towards Gukai. At the same time, he punched out towards Gukai's head. The speed was so fast that even the air was blown apart. Gukai roared again and again, condensing all his strength into his fists, and then punched out with a force that could destroy the sky. Boom! The fists of both sides collided fiercely in the void, erupting with an earth-shattering boom. Mi Yang flipped his body and landed easily. On the other hand, Gukai let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying by a huge force. During this process, the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Murongyu looked over and saw that Gukai's hands were broken inch by inch. Dying! After Mi Yang landed, he roared. His body turned into a phantom as he pounced towards Gukai, wanting to kill him in one fell swoop. Yin Lai snorted coldly, and with a flash of his body, he pounced forward. Bang! However, he was only in the upper realm, and the gap between him and Mi Yang, who was in the upper realm, was too big. With one move, he ended up in the same state as Gukai. His hands were broken, and his whole body was sent flying. However, he also succeeded in stopping Mi Yang's attack. However, the 2 strongest warriors of Creek Creek Village were heavily injured by Mi Yang in one move, and the others were even less of a match for Mi Yang. At this moment, Mi Yang was not injured at all. You overestimate yourself. Mi Yang sneered and stepped forward with a murderous aura. Swish! The men of Creek Creek Village immediately rushed up and blocked in front of Gukai and Yin Lai, glaring at Mi Yang. I've suddenly changed my mind. Wouldn't it be a pity to kill so many people? We should take you all as slaves. Serve our High Sun village for the rest of your lives. Mi Yang laughed. Warriors of Creek Village, we'd rather die than submit. Gukai roared. Rather die than submit? Then I'll kill you first. Mi-yong released a terrifying, murderous aura as he walked towards Gukai step by step. From the beginning to the end, Morong Yu had no intention of making a move. He just looked on calmly as if he was an outsider. After all, he was an outsider. However, at this moment, he was ready to make a move. It was obvious that Gukai and the others were good people, but Mi-yong was definitely not. Morong Yu could even feel his surging ambition, not to mention the black light radiating from his body that soared to the heavens. However, just as he was about to make a move, he stopped in his tracks. Blood crystals? Morong Yu looked at Gukai in surprise. At this moment, Gukai had already used a large amount of divine power to restore his broken hands and arms to their peak. At the same time, he grabbed a large handful of blood crystals and stuffed them into his mouth under Morong Yu's surprised gaze. What's going on? Morong Yu's mind was a little confused. Chapter 1088. For a pinky-sized blood crystal, experts at the level of quasi-saint would fight to the death. Yet, Gukai was stuffing a bunch of blood crystals into his mouth. What was going on? Morong Yu clearly saw Gukai stuffing at least a dozen blood crystals into his mouth. That was more than a dozen blood crystals. Yet, Gukai was eating them like vegetables? Could it be that this world produced a large number of blood crystals? While Morong Yu was still in shock, the villagers of Sunny Creek Village were already crying out in alarm. Gukai, do you want to die? How could you swallow blood crystals like that? Once the power of the blood crystals erupts, your entire body will explode. Even if you successfully suppress the power of the blood crystals, you will still be invaded by the terrifying, murderous aura and eventually become a demon that only knows how to kill. Yin Lai looked at Gukai with a face full of shock and anger. Gukai slowly opened his eyes and looked at Mi-yong with a ferocious expression. I have to break through, or our Sunny Creek Village will be destroyed. Even if I become a demon, I will protect Sunny Creek Village. The people of Sunny Creek Village were deeply moved. However, they felt more pain than anything else. If it wasn't for Mi-yong, how could they be like this? How could Gukai swallow so many blood crystals without caring about his life? Whoosh! For a moment, everyone in Sunny Creek Village focused their gazes on Mi-yong with hatred, anger, and murderous intent. In response, Mi-yong revealed a smile on his face, as if he was enjoying the attention. Idiot, if it was so easy to break through, then we would be full of peak divine heavenly sovereigns here. No matter how many blood crystals you swallow, you are destined to fail. In order to reduce your pain, I have decided to send you on your way personally. As he spoke, Mi-yong continued walking towards Gukai. At this moment, Gukai's entire body was enveloped by an intense blood-red divine light, perhaps due to the eruption of the blood crystal's power. A tyrannical, murderous aura, filled with the smell of blood, erupted from his body. Gukai's entire body was like a swollen ball as it began to swell rapidly. The clothes on his body were instantly torn apart and shattered into countless pieces. Ferocious veins also appeared, wriggling rapidly. It was a terrifying sight. In fact, Morong Yu even saw Gukai's eyes turn blood red in the blink of an eye. Guard! Yin Lai, who had already recovered his broken arm, roared and charged towards Mi-yong. The other warriors of Sunny Creek Village also held their weapons and stood in front of Gukai. You overestimate yourself. Mi-yong sneered as he strode forward and punched Yin Lai. Boom! Yin Lai was simply no match for Mi-yong and was sent flying with a single move. This time, his entire chest collapsed of his chest. It's terrifying. Seeing this, the other warriors of Sunny Creek Village roared and charged forward. However, they saw the warriors of the ground level of the Sunny Creek Village. Who? Phone! At this time, the other men of Sunny Creek Village had all been sent flying by Mi-yong. Even Yin Lai and Gukai, who were of the upper stage, couldn't withstand a single move from him, let alone the lower and middle stage. In the end, you still don't have the chance to break through to the extreme stage. Mi-Yong sneered as he punched toward Mi-Yong. Murong Yu, who hadn't made a move until now, finally moved. His figure flashed, and he arrived in front of Gu Kai in a single step. At the same time, he stretched out his hand and grabbed Mi-Yang's hand. Instantly, Mi-Yang's large hand felt like it was being clamped by a red-hot iron pincer, burning painfully. Most importantly, he couldn't move his arm at all. Mi-Yong was shocked, and he struggled with all his might. However, Murong Yu's hand was like a sacred mountain standing between heaven and earth, unmoving. Fear appeared in Mi-Yang's eyes, and he quickly punched towards Murong Yu's head with his other hand. However, at this time, Mi-Yong suddenly felt a powerful force surging into his hand that was grabbed by Murong Yu. Suddenly, he felt his whole body go limp. His fist also became weak and powerless, and he couldn't help but stop halfway through his attack. Didn't you say that Gu Kai couldn't break through? Why didn't you wait for the result before making a move? Or are you afraid? Afraid that after Gu Kai breaks through, you won't be his opponent anymore? Murong Yu looked at the frightened Mi-Yong with a faint smile. Everyone who saw this scene, regardless of whether they were from Xiang Village or Gaoyang Village, was shocked. They didn't know that Mi-Yong had been restrained by Murong Yu. However, they saw that Mi-Yong couldn't break free from Murong Yu's grip. Who was Murong Yu? How could he be so strong? Even Mi-Yong, who was in the Supreme Realm, couldn't withstand a single move from him? For a moment, everyone was shocked. However, the people of Sunny Creek Village showed a glimmer of hope. However, Yen Lai, who was one of the two great warriors of Sunny Creek Village, was sweating profusely. Not long ago, he had chased Murong Yu away. If Murong Yu had made a move at that time, he would have been dead by now. Why would I be afraid of this trash? After the shock, Mi-Yong laughed out loud. However, everyone could hear that he was strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. If that's the case, then scram to the side and wait, Murong Yu said indifferently. He hated trash like this the most. Immediately, he swung his hand and threw Mi-Yong away. Plop! Mi-Yong fell to the ground in a dog-eat-dog posture. Although he quickly got up, it was already seen by everyone. It was very embarrassing. The people of High Sun Village were anxious. They didn't know if Murong Yu, a powerhouse, would interfere in the matter between their two tribes. If he wanted to interfere, none of them would be spared today. Thinking of this, some of them were already thinking of retreating. However, just as they were about to sneak away, Murong Yu looked at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Then, their legs felt as heavy as Mount Tai, as if they were filled with lead. They couldn't move. Everyone was terrified. Fortunately, Murong Yu didn't make a move. At this moment, Gu Kai's entire body was covered in a blood-red light. With the naked eye, they could see him under the light. Therefore, no one knew what he looked like now. However, everyone could feel that his aura was constantly increasing. Whoosh! At this moment, Murong Yu saw Gu Kai flip his hand. Then, more than 10 blood crystals were swallowed by him. What a waste! Murong Yu was so angry that he wanted to slap Gu Kai to death. With so many blood crystals, he could at least advance by a large realm and become an immemorial god. However, this guy didn't have any effect at all. However, Murong Yu was curious. Could 20 to 30 blood crystals the size of a pinky raise a high-grade god artifact level body to a supreme-grade god artifact level body? If it was possible, the blood crystals were too heaven-defying. One had to know that Murong Yu took thousands or tens of thousands of years to break through from a high-grade god artifact level body to a supreme-grade god artifact level body. Moreover, it was in the secret zone. While Murong Yu was lost in thought, a loud noise suddenly rang out from Gu Kai's body. Then, the blood-red light that was originally condensed on the surface of his body was absorbed by his body. Then, Gu Kai stood up. Murong Yu's pupils abruptly shrank. A supreme-grade god artifact level body. Could 20 to 30 blood crystals really raise Gu Kai's body from a high-grade god artifact level to a supreme-grade god artifact level? While Murong Yu was shocked, the others were also shocked. It was common knowledge in the blood crystal world that blood crystals could raise their physical realm. However, Everyone knew that the blood crystal contained an enormous amount of power and killing intent. They could only slowly absorb the power of one blood crystal for a long time. That was because while absorbing the power of the blood crystal, they had to slowly expel the killing intent contained in the blood crystal. Therefore, no matter how powerful they were, they could only swallow one blood crystal at a time. They could only continue to swallow after absorbing all the power of the blood crystal. Otherwise, this world would be filled with divine, heavenly sovereigns. However, there weren't many supreme-grade experts. Supreme-grade experts were even rarer, and divine-grade experts were almost non-existent. Gukai was taking too much of a risk. If he wasn't careful, he would explode from the power of the blood crystal and be attacked by the killing intent. Even if he didn't die, he would become a demon that only knew how to kill. Normally, those who forcefully broke through like Gukai would definitely die. The reason why Gukai succeeded was because of his temperament and his mission to protect Sunny Creek Village. Due to all these reasons, he overcame everything and successfully broke through. Miyang. After feeling his powerful strength, Gukai roared and pounced on Miyang. Miyang glanced at Murongyu. After seeing that he had no intention of interfering, he rushed up to fight with Gukai. Although they were both supreme-grade experts, Gukai, who had just broken through, clearly hadn't fully grasped his new power. Therefore, his strength was still inferior to Miyang. However, although he was at a disadvantage in strength, there was a ruthlessness in his heart. It was this ruthlessness that allowed him to be on par with Miyang in the fight. The people of Sunny Creek Village and High Sun Village watched the battle between the two intently. It seemed to be very exciting. Murongyu, on the other hand, was starting to feel sleepy. The battle between the two was like a hooligan in the mortal world. There was no order and there were no moves to speak of. They relied entirely on their own brute force to win. Not only was this kind of battle a waste of energy, but even if they won, they would also be injured. Unless it was like how Miyang dealt with Yen Lai and the others who were at a lower realm and sent them flying with a punch. Chapter 1089. Asterisk bang. Asterisk after the two fought for a long time, Gukai, who had just broken through, gradually grasped his new power. However, he was still no match for Miyang and was sent flying with a punch. This was not the first time he was sent flying. In fact, both of them were in a very sorry state, with different degrees of injuries on their bodies. However, Gukai's injuries were obviously much worse. This time, after being sent flying by Miyang's punch, he could only lie on the ground and vomit blood, unable to even stand up. He no longer had the strength to fight. While they were fighting, Gukai was sent flying several times by Miyang. However, Murongyu did not make a move, so Miyang thought that Murongyu would not intervene in the matters of Sunny Creek Village. Thus, after he heavily injured Gukai this time, he charged towards Gukai with a savage grin on his face, intending to kill Gukai. Everyone in Sunny Creek Village could feel the intense aura emanating from Miyang. They all knew that Miyang would never let Gukai go. Once Gukai was killed, it would be their turn. Even if Miyang did not kill them, they would become slaves. Gukai was incomparably furious in his heart and struggled to get up. However, he did not even have the ability to get up. He could only let out a low growl in his throat. "Senior, please save our Sunny Creek Village." Just as Miyang was approaching Gukai with a sinister smile, Yenlai rushed to Murongyu despite his serious injuries. Then, with a plop, he knelt down and kowtowed to Murongyu. "Senior, please save us." Countless people immediately reacted and knelt down, kowtowing to Murongyu. Even the women and children in the village ran out and knelt in front of Murongyu. Miyang stopped and turned to look at Murongyu with a gloomy expression. He did not dare to kill Gukai now, nor did he dare to stop the people of Sunny Creek Village. This was because he knew how terrifying Murongyu was. If Murongyu were to save him, he would die without a doubt. Even the entire High Sun Village would be wiped out. "We can save him now, but not forever." Murongyu shook his head. Even if he saved her this time, what about in the future? In the end, he had to leave this place. Even if he killed Miyang, there wasn't just one Miyang in this world. If Shiyang village didn't become strong, they would always be in this predicament. Therefore, they had to save themselves. This was the only way they could survive in this world. It was not just the blood crystal world. It was the same in every world. The strong preyed on the weak, and the fist was the truth. However, Morong Yu still had to make a move. Immediately, he said calmly, Miyang, leave with your people. I will stay in Xiang village for a while. Yes, we'll leave this way. Miyang didn't dare to object, and immediately left with the people of Hai Sun village. Brother Miyang, are we really going to let Sunny Creek village go? If we can't even conquer a small village like Sunny Creek village, how are we going to conquer other tribes? How are we going to conquer the whole world? On the way, the wretched young man said unwillingly, Are you a match for that person? If you can defeat him, Sunny Creek village will naturally be conquered by us. The people of Hai Sun village fell silent. That powerhouse isn't from Sunny Creek village, so he will leave eventually. The day he leaves will be the day we conquer Sunny Creek village. Miyang said calmly with a cold gleam in his eyes. The only person he was worried about was Morong Yu. Thank you for saving our lives, Senior. Yin Lai was overjoyed when he saw Morong Yu ordering Miyang and the others to leave. He quickly kowtowed to Morong Yu. Morong Yu had saved the entire Sunny Creek village, so he deserved to kowtow to express his gratitude. Get up. Morong Yu was not used to seeing the others kowtow to express their gratitude. Gukai's injuries are very serious. If he isn't treated in time, his realm might fall to the upper stage. Once his realm falls, it will be impossible for him to raise his realm again in this lifetime. Is there a godly doctor in your village? Our village chief's medical skills are quite good. After we were injured, he was the one who treated us. However, it's a pity that the old village chief hasn't returned yet. Yin Lai said to Morong Yu as he carried Gukai and ran towards Sunny Creek village. Morong Yu finally came to a realization. He had always felt that Sunny Creek village was missing something. It turned out that there was no village chief. Brother Yin, Gukai's injuries are so serious. What should we do? Should we go to the other tribes and ask for a godly doctor? I'm afraid Gukai won't be able to hold on. A warrior from Sunny Creek village said to Yin Lai with a worried expression. The tribes near us definitely won't be able to. With Miyang's character, he will definitely threaten those tribes. Those people won't dare to go against Miyang, so they won't treat Gukai. If we go to other places, I'm afraid there won't be enough time. Besides, we can't afford Ong Fei's treatment fee, Yin Lai said with a frown. He was very unhappy. Brother Yin, Dr. Situ of the Green Sun tribe, is well known and extremely cheap. Why don't we ask her to treat Gukai? Another warrior said. Dr. Situ is indeed good, but we're too far away from the Green Sun tribe. Even if we reach the Green Sun tribe, whether Dr. Situ can stay in the tribe is still a problem. Then what should we do? Could it be that we can only watch as Gukai is crippled? A warrior said angrily. Morong Yu rolled his eyes. A great godly doctor like him was standing here, but these people didn't see him. He couldn't help but feel a little speechless. Immediately, he said, I can treat Gukai's injuries. Senior, please save Gukai. We, the warriors of Sunny Creek Village, will never forget your great kindness. As long as you can cure Gukai, just tell us what you need. We'll definitely satisfy you if you need a holy weapon or something like that. In an instant, the crowd was like a drowning man who had grasped at a life-saving straw. They begged without a care in the world. Holy weapon? Morong Yu was shocked. There were still holy weapons in this world. However, holy weapons were of no use to Morong Yu. The most important thing to him now was the blood crystals. He had already saved Sunny Creek Village. If he saved Gukai now, it shouldn't be a problem to ask them for blood crystals, right? When he saw Gukai eating blood crystals by the handful, Morong Yu consciously thought that there were plenty of blood crystals here. Morong Yu walked to Gukai's side and shook his head as he looked at the feeble Gukai lying on the bed. Although Gukai's physical body had broken through, he was now crippled. Even a godly doctor like Old Man Pei might not be able to cure him. Even if he was cured, Gukai probably wouldn't be able to break through in the future. Cough. Thank you, Senior. Gukai coughed up blood and struggled to get up to thank Morongyu. However, Yinlai forcefully pressed him down. Senior, should we leave? Yinlai looked at Morongyu. He knew that some godly doctors didn't want others to be around when they were treating patients. After all, they always had special methods that they didn't want a third party to see. There's no need, Morongyu said calmly and reached out to grab Gukai's hand. At the same time, the life force rushed into Gukai's hand like a flood and quickly flowed through his body. Gukai's hand had been broken inch by inch, but Yinlai and the others saw that the wound on Gukai's hand was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths' time, Gukai's broken arm had recovered to its original state. At the same time, more than half of his ghastly body, which was riddled with wounds, had been healed. In an instant, everyone except Morongyu was shocked. Yinlai and the others were speechless when they saw the wounds healing so quickly. They just looked at Morongyu in shock. In their hearts, they were wondering who Morongyu was to have such a terrifying healing ability. Even godly Dr. Situ of the Green Sun tribe is far inferior to this senior, right? Yinlai and the others suddenly had this thought. As the person involved, Gukai was even more shocked. Even after Morongyu had retracted his hand and removed the life force, he still hadn't reacted. Gukai, aren't you going to thank Senior for saving your life? Yinlai was the first to react and immediately shouted at the stunned Gukai. Gukai immediately bounced up from the bed and bowed to Morongyu after landing. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. My life was given to me by Senior. In the future, if Senior has any errands, Gukai, will do it. Get up. Morongyu frowned slightly. He was really not used to others bowing to him. Also, my name is Morongyu. You can call me by my name, but don't call me Senior in the future. It sounds awkward, Morongyu said lightly. Mr. Morong, in order to thank you for saving the lives of Xiong Village and Gukai, we are holding a banquet for you. It will be held in the evening. I'll go prepare the divine weapon now to thank you for saving our lives. Wait a minute, what divine weapon? The divine weapon of a saint? Morongyu finally couldn't help but ask. Brother Morong, don't you know about the divine weapon? Gukai asked with a silly smile, while the others also showed a touch of doubt. Morongyu shook his head. To be honest, I'm not from this world. I entered this world by mistake. I don't even know what world this is. Are you the legendary person from the outside world? From the realm of the gods? Yinlai and the others were shocked. Each of them looked at Morongyu curiously, as if they wanted to see how different Morongyu was from them. According to legends, the people from the realm of the gods are extremely powerful. You can see that from Brother Morong. Gukai smiled foolishly. Morongyu smiled helplessly in his heart. If they were in the realm of the gods, many people from the realm of the gods could easily suppress Gukai and the others. But in this world, even a quasi-saint would be easily suppressed. After all, for a quasi-saint of the realm of the gods, it was already heaven-defying for their body to reach the level of a low-grade divine weapon. Chapter 1090. Whoosh! A huge saber that was taller than Morongyu suddenly appeared in Gukai's hand. As soon as the saber appeared, Morongyu felt the air in the room turn cold. A holy artifact. Although the saber's power was not fully unleashed, Morongyu could still tell its grade at a glance. This is a holy artifact, Gukai said to Morongyu with a silly smile as he waved the saber in his hand. Morongyu was a little disappointed. It turned out that the so-called holy artifacts in this world were only holy artifacts. However, he was not very disappointed. After all, he had already guessed so. After all, this was not the holy world. If there really were a large number of holy artifacts, it would be heaven-defying. These holy artifacts are useless to me. Gukai, do you have those blood crystals? Morongyu shook his head and went straight to the point. I only have these. Gukai flipped his hand, and a dozen blood crystals the size of a pinky appeared in his hand. Then, He handed the blood crystals to Murong Yu without hesitation. "You're giving all of these to me?" Murong Yu did not take them. Gukai nodded and said, "Although we don't have many blood crystals in Sunny Creek Village, you saved our entire village and even me. It's not too much to give all of these blood crystals to you. Big Brother Murong, please wait for a moment. I'll be back soon." Before he even finished speaking, Gukai had already run out of the room. "Yin Lai, can you tell me about this world?" Murong Yu looked at Yin Lai and asked. "Our world is called Desolate, the Desolate World. It's a vast and boundless world. Legend has it that it's boundless and has no end. The Desolate World." Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat as a thought flashed through his mind. "I don't know what the outside world is like. However, in our Desolate World, we only have 6 realms. Low grade, middle grade, holy grade. Moreover, we can only cultivate the physical body. As for the strength and cultivation realms, you've seen it too. The highest is our level. However, according to the legends, there are still those with higher realms." After Yin Lai's explanation, Murong Yu finally understood what this desolate world was like. This was a world that specialized in cultivating the fleshly body. There was a huge restriction on the realm of power. The heavenly god realm was already the pinnacle. If it was the heavenly sky realm, perhaps only the legendary divine heavenly experts could reach it. Moreover, Murong Yu also discovered that the lifespan of the people in the desolate world was far inferior to the people of the god world outside. For example, the deities in the outside world had a lifespan of 100 eras, but in the desolate world, they only had 50 eras. Of course, the desolate world and the god world were 2 completely different worlds. One could only cultivate the physical body, while the other focused on the cultivation of one's strength. Both of them had their own advantages and disadvantages, and it was impossible to compare which world's people were stronger. In the divine world, most people could easily kill people from the desolate world. In the desolate world, even a 10th order quasi-saint from the divine world would be killed easily. In the desolate world, even if you reached the peak of the divine heavenly realm, you would also be unable to ascend and become a divine heavenly expert. Hence, ascending and becoming a divine heavenly expert was the same as the outside world to everyone in the desolate world. It was just a legend. Furthermore, in the desolate world, there were extremely few people who could reach the divine heavenly expert. However, this world produced a special substance, blood crystals. It could even be said that the people in the desolate world could raise the realm of their physical body entirely by relying on blood crystals. Without blood crystals, they would not be able to raise their realm at all, because in the desolate world, there were extremely few cultivation methods. Furthermore, the heaven and earth essence energy was too thin. If one only absorbed heaven and earth essence energy to cultivate, it was basically impossible to raise to a higher realm. If that was the case, there would probably only be low-grade divine artifact level fleshly body in the entire desolate world. In other words, as long as there are sufficient blood crystals, one can keep raising their realm, even straight to the divine heavenly expert. Murong Yu inquired. Yin Lai smiled slightly. If that's the case, no matter how little blood crystals there are in the desolate world, there will also be a large number of divine heavenly expert appearing now. Each of us can absorb the power of the blood crystals to raise our physical body strength. However, everyone has a limit. For example, a person's limit is 10 blood crystals. Then, after absorbing the power of 10 blood crystals, he will not be able to continue absorbing. Even if he swallows the blood crystals, he will be repelled by the blood crystals. Aptitude. Similar to the divine world, aptitude was important. The better the aptitude, the more blood crystals one could swallow. However, there was still a huge difference between the desolate world and the divine world. In the divine world, even if one's aptitude was not good, one could still reach a higher realm if one worked hard to cultivate. However, in the desolate world, there was a lack of heaven and earth essence energy, and one could not swallow the power of the blood crystals. Aptitude completely determined one's achievements. How do you know the limit of a person's absorption of blood crystals? Morong Yu inquired. To the people in the desolate world, the blood crystals might only have one power, which was to raise their physical body strength. However, one should not forget that the blood crystals also had a heaven-defying ability to raise comprehension. Comprehension was equivalent to aptitude in the divine world. As long as one's comprehension was high enough, one could comprehend the deeper level of the cultivation method and cultivate to a higher realm. In fact, to the people in the divine world, the blood crystals were especially precious. Not only could it raise comprehension, but it could also temper the body. It was a rare treasure that could raise both the body and cultivation. If the people in the divine world knew that this world produced blood crystals, they would probably flock over. Of course, it would be impossible for them to snatch the blood crystals. Yanlai immediately replied, "If one approaches the limit, the blood crystals will start repelling the body. The closer one approaches the limit, the stronger the repelling force. Once one is unable to absorb the blood crystals, that would be the limit. Even if one wanted to forcefully absorb the blood crystals, they would not be able to do so. In the Sunny Creek village, other than Gukai and me, everyone else has already reached the limit." Speaking up to here, Yanlai sighed. If the Sunny Creek village wanted to become stronger, it would not be enough to rely on just him and Gukai. After all, this was a war between tribes, not individual heroes. If a tribe wanted to become stronger, there must be a large number of warriors in the tribe. I wonder what my limit is. Morong Yu pondered. If there was no limit, Morong Yu could continuously absorb the power of the blood crystals to raise his comprehension. It was the same for everyone else in the God world, who would be able to raise their level of enlightenment and achieve breakthroughs in cultivation. Big Brother Morong, our Sunny Creek village only has these few blood crystals. Gukai walked in with 20 to 30 blood crystals in his large hands. He was somewhat embarrassed. Because they were the two strongest warriors in the Sunny Creek village, the blood crystals of the Sunny Creek village had always been safeguarded by Gukai and Yanlai. The blood crystals that Gukai had absorbed before were the majority of the blood crystals in the Sunny Creek village. I only need 10 blood crystals. Morong Yu only took 10 blood crystals. How can this be? Gukai glared at him, somewhat unhappy. You saved me in the Sunny Creek village. How can 10 blood crystals express our gratitude? Even if it's all of them, it's still too little. You must take all of them. Gukai, you just broke through to the extreme stage, so you can continue to raise your realm. You can also use these blood crystals. Of course, if you want the Sunny Creek village to be destroyed by other tribes, I can take all of them. Without these, I can still search for more. Gukai said in a deep voice. Before you can find more blood crystals, the Sunny Creek village would have been destroyed. Morong Yu sneered. Big Brother Yen. Gukai was in a difficult position. He looked at Yanlai, who was beside him. Let's do as Mr. Morong said. We'll keep these blood crystals. If Mr. Morong hasn't left yet, we'll give all the blood crystals we find to Mr. Morong in a few days. Gukai's eyes immediately lit up. Yes, we'll go out to search for blood crystals in a few days. Brother Morong, when the time comes, you can come with us. With your strength, you'll definitely be able to obtain more blood crystals. Morong Yu's heart moved, and he immediately asked. As it turned out, the blood crystals weren't scattered all over the desolate world. Instead, they existed in some similar mines. There was a mine near the Sunny Creek village. Every once in a while, the mine would open once in a while. Every time it opened, countless experts from different tribes would come to search for it. During that time, all the tribes nearby would stop fighting because all the experts had to enter the mine to search for blood crystals. And the mine would open in 3 months. Okay, we'll go to the mine together in 3 months. Morong Yu decided. Yanlai and Gukai were overjoyed. This meant that Morong Yu could stay in the Sunny Creek village for 3 months. At least, during these 3 months, the High Sun village wouldn't dare to attack them. Moreover, with Morong Yu's strength, they would definitely obtain a lot of blood crystals if they enter the mine. Morong Yu immediately stayed in the Sunny Creek village. At this moment, Morong Yu was sitting cross-legged in the house that Gukai and the others had arranged for him. The blood crystals can be swallowed directly or refined. Muronyu muttered to himself and threw a blood crystal into his mouth. The blood crystal didn't seem to have any energy fluctuation, but it melted in his mouth and turned into a blood-red torrent that surged toward Murongyu's limbs and bones. At the same time, an enormous amount of killing intent burst out and wreaked havoc in Murongyu's body. During this process, Murongyu felt that his comprehension was increasing rapidly. Murongyu frowned. The quality of the blood crystal wasn't high. Although it could increase comprehension, there was a limit to how much it could increase. On the contrary, the killing intent that suddenly burst out was tempering Murongyu's body as it wreaked havoc in his body. Relying on killing intent to improve his body? If that was the case, couldn't he just absorb the killing intent between heaven and earth? He didn't need the killing intent in the blood crystal. Chapter 1091. That's not right. There's another force in the killing intent. Murongyu carefully observed the killing intent that was raging in his body and suddenly made a discovery. There was killing intent everywhere in the deserted world, especially in the chi of heaven and earth. The killing intent was extremely violent. Once invaded, no matter how powerful one was, one would either explode and die or turn into a devil that only knew how to kill without any humanity. The same went for the killing intent in the blood crystal. However, there was more killing intent in the blood crystal, just like the tree of life. The killing intent was raging in Murongyu's body. Murongyu's body had already reached the level of a superb divine weapon. However, some of his body was still torn apart by the killing intent. After the body was torn apart, Murongyu saw a blood-red force in the blood crystal. The blood-red force easily repaired the muscles that were torn apart by the killing intent. Tear and repair. After a cycle, the strength of the muscles increased slightly. Just like when Murongyu was cultivating in the gravity's secret place, his body was constantly being torn apart by gravity, but the life force repaired it quickly. The blood crystal could improve the strength of the body for the same reason. After observing, Murongyu soon discovered that the blood-red force that had the ability to repair had a ratio of 1:9 to the killing intent. In other words, if the power of a blood crystal was divided into 10 parts, the killing intent would take up 9 parts while the rest would be the blood-red force. One part of the blood-red force can barely repair the damage caused by 9 parts of the killing intent. If I devour more blood crystals at the same time, the blood-red force won't be able to repair it quickly. If that's the case, the person will explode from the killing intent. Murongyu quickly figured it out. However, the blood crystals that he had were of too low a grade and too few of them. They had no effect on improving his body at all. However, he could not understand why the blood crystals could improve his comprehension. While pondering, Murongyu threw another blood crystal into his mouth. After the blood crystal melted, his comprehension increased slightly again. Still not enough. After swallowing 5 blood crystals in a row, Murongyu's comprehension ability barely doubled. Then, he began to comprehend the record of chaotic celestial bodies. With his perception increased, Murongyu's perception had indeed increased by quite a bit. However, it was extremely difficult to break through the chaotic celestial body record. Until half a month later, Murongyu began to feel that his comprehension was gradually declining. He immediately knew that the effect of the blood crystal was about to expire. Immediately, he swallowed the last 5 blood crystals. Another half a month later, Suhao suddenly opened his eyes. A cold glint flashed across his eyes. However, a look of regret soon appeared on his face. He was so close to breaking through. Once he obtained the primal chaos celestial body record, he would be able to reach the primordial god realm. There are still too few blood crystals. If he had enough blood crystals, he would be able to break through during this closed-door cultivation. Gukai, are you going to submit or not? At this moment, a disdainful voice entered Murongyu's ears. Murongyu changed slightly. With a sway of his figure, he disappeared from the spot and appeared outside Creek Sun Village. At this moment, outside Creek Sun Village, Many men of Creek Sun Village had been beaten to the ground. Some were unconscious, but some were screaming and moaning. Murong-yu even saw that a few people had lost their lives. Yin Lai, one of the two great warriors of Creek Sun Village, was also unconscious. And Gu Kai, who had just broken through to the Supreme Grade realm a month ago, was now being trampled under the feet of High Sun Village's warrior, Miyang. He was seriously injured. He didn't even have the strength to speak. But Gu Kai still looked at Miyang with angry eyes. Anger, indignation, and incomparable hatred. Miyang, you're here to cause trouble again? Murong-yu's face was gloomy, and he was very unhappy. This Miyang clearly knew that he was here, but he still dared to come and cause trouble. Wasn't this a slap to his face? You that Murong-yu? A middle-aged man walked out from behind Miyang and looked at Murong-yu with disdain. His expression was like that of a high and mighty emperor, not taking Murong-yu seriously at all. I thought Miyang had eaten a leopard's guts. So there's an expert like you. Murong-yu looked over and found that this person's body was also at the Supreme Grade Divine Artifact level. But his cultivation level was much higher than Miyang's. Miyang's cultivation level was only at the early stage, but the middle-aged man was at the mid-stage, and his body seemed to be stronger than Miyang's as well. Get out of my way. Murong-yu's figure flickered, and he rushed to Miyang's side with a single step, then threw a punch at Miyang. The middle-aged man sneered, and also took a step to Miyang's side. He also threw a punch at Murong-yu's fist. He actually wanted to meet Murong-yu's strength head-on. Murong-yu sneered in his heart. Invincible divine fist advanced courageously. The punch landed on the middle-aged man's body. Boom! After a loud sound, the middle-aged man's expression changed, and he was immediately sent flying. Murong-yu's fist didn't stop at all. After sending the middle-aged man flying, it immediately landed on Miyang's body. Ah! Miyang immediately let out a miserable cry. Half of his body had been smashed apart by Murong-yu's punch, and he was sent flying far away, leaving a trail of blood in the air. Two Supreme-Grade experts were sent flying with a single punch. The excited people of High Sun Village were suddenly speechless, and they all looked at Murong-yu blankly. Before this, the middle-aged man had easily defeated Miyang. At that time, they all thought that the middle-aged man would be able to easily defeat Murong-yu, so they rushed over. However, they didn't expect that the middle-aged man would be sent flying by Murong-yu with a single punch. While the people of High Sun Village were still in shock, Murong-yu had already grabbed Gu Kai, who was originally under Miyang's foot, and, at the same time, injected a stream of life energy into his body. At the same time, Murong-yu's life energy was injected into the injured or unconscious people of Creek Sun Village. With the healing of the life energy, everyone's injuries quickly healed. Then, they all stood behind Murong-yu, and all of them looked at the people of High Sun Village with hatred. If they had the strength, they definitely wouldn't hesitate to attack and kill Murong-yu, Miyang, and the others. Big Brother Murong. Gu Kai's injuries were soon mostly healed. At this moment, he, who was looking at Miyang and the others with hatred, suddenly turned around and knelt in front of Murong-yu. Big Brother Murong, please accept me as your disciple. As he spoke, Gu Kai kept kowtowing. Murong-yu was powerful, and he knew many cultivation methods and combat skills. For the people of the desolate world who lacked cultivation methods and combat skills, he was definitely a master teacher. Although Gu Kai was simple and honest, he wasn't stupid. However, that didn't mean that he was a fool. He knew Murong-yu's strength and the situation in Sunny Creek Village. Once Murong-yu left Creek Sun Village, it would be wiped out by the other tribes. Moreover, he was also in the extreme stage like Miyang and the others, but there was a huge gap between their strength. In a month's time, his strength had increased a lot. However, Miyang had obviously received guidance from a master teacher, and his strength had increased even more. Just now, Gu Kai couldn't even take 3 hits from Miyang, and he was almost crippled. Get up first. Murong-yu grabbed Gu Kai's shoulder and lifted him up. Gu Kai was still unwilling, but he couldn't struggle. The gap between the two was too big. Gu Kai, you're trash. What's the point of relying on an outsider? If you have the ability, beat me yourself. If you do, Myong, will never touch a single blade of grass in Creek Sun Village again. Myong had already used a large amount of divine power to recover the half of his body that Murong Yu had shattered. He walked up and said coldly. Murong Yu's heart jumped, and he looked at Myong indifferently. He then asked Gu Kai, "How many moves did you lose to Myong?" "Less than 3 moves. His strength has increased a lot, and his speed and attacks are much stronger than before." Gu Kai lowered his head in shame. Murong Yu nodded. He was sure that the reason why Myong had improved so much was because someone from the God Realm came to High Sun Village and gave him guidance. And it was very likely that it was one of the 2 quasi-saint that Murong Yu came. In a month, Gu Kai will personally come to High Sun Village to challenge you. Prepare a large amount of blood crystals and holy artifacts. Once you lose, those will be Gu Kai's spoils. Now scram. Ha. 1 month. I'd like to see how a trash like Gu Kai can defeat me. Myong laughed loudly, and then turned to leave. As for the middle-aged man with the arrogant expression, he had already left the moment he was sent flying by Murong Yu's punch. He probably felt ashamed and didn't have the face to see anyone. Big brother Murong, how can I defeat him in a month? Gu Kai didn't say anything before, but now he was anxious. If you can't defeat that trash Myong in a month, you can kill yourself. Murong Yu patted Gu Kai's shoulder and said. Gu Kai stared blankly for a moment, then reacted, "Big brother Murong, you're taking me as your disciple?" Murong Yu shook his head. "My standards for taking disciples are very high. I'm only teaching you some battle skills and cultivation methods, not taking you as a disciple. Of course, if you can meet my requirements, it's not impossible to take you as a disciple." Although Gu Kai was a bit disappointed, he was still very happy. "Big brother Murong, I'll definitely meet your requirements. I'll definitely acknowledge you as my master. It's good to have hope, but don't have too much hope." Murong Yu patted Gu Kai's shoulder and then turned to enter Creek Sun Village. Chapter 1092. Long ago, Murong Yu discovered that the people of the desolate world didn't pay attention to battle skills or cultivation techniques. 2 experts whose bodies had reached the level of a supreme, grade divine artifact were treated like ruffians. Later, when he talked with Yen Lai, Murong Yu understood this world. Only those large tribes had cultivation techniques and battle skills. As for a small village like Sunny Creek Village with only a few hundred people, they didn't even know what a cultivation technique was. In fact, there was a cultivation method in Sunny Creek Village that was used to temper one's physical body. However, it was extremely crude, so Murong Yu tossed it aside after a single glance. It wasn't even as high level as the cultivation techniques of the cultivation world. Could it be that the people of this world are incapable? They can't create a cultivation technique? Murong Yu was suspicious. However, he also knew that the people of the desolate world definitely weren't stupid. But why couldn't they create a cultivation technique? There was only one reason. It was like the beginning of a civilization. At the beginning of a civilization, it was in the stage of development. Words, knowledge, and so on are all in the stage of exploration. If a civilization was compared to a warrior, then the current civilization of the God Realm was equivalent to a warrior who had cultivated to the peak. The civilization of the desolate world was just a warrior who had just come into contact with the world of cultivation and didn't understand anything. Therefore, when Murong Yu threw out the simplest battle skill, the people of Sunny Creek Village rolled their eyes. They couldn't understand it at all. Dragon, elephant, prajna art. This was a powerful battle skill that Murong Yu had cultivated from the beginning. Even now, he was still using this battle skill in battle. Now, he decided to teach this cultivation technique to Gu Kai. After all, the only thing suitable for the desolate world was battle skills. 1,000 army elephant drawing fist. Outside Sunny Creek Village, Gu Kai roared and punched out. Immediately, an extremely terrifying power surged out from his hand, causing ripples to appear in the space around him. After the roar of a dragon and an elephant, a huge dragon and a huge elephant roared, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. They pounced toward a small hill in front of them. In an instant, the small hill was blasted apart with a loud bang. Gukai immediately laughed, his voice filled with excitement. With his strength, it would be easy for him to destroy that small hill with a single punch. However, he wanted to punch the small hill directly. However, all he did was throw a punch across the air. In fact, he did not even use the power of his cultivation. It was just the power of a battle skill. Seeing this, Muronyu, who was not far from Gukai, nodded slightly. In the beginning, Gukai was completely clueless about this set of combat skills. However, after Muronyu had imparted some of his experiences to him, his talent for combat skills had shown itself. In less than a few days, he had already grasped the basics of the dragon-elephant prajna art. He even used the dragon-elephant phenomenon. If he could completely control this cultivation method, his strength would definitely double. Defeating Miyang would be no problem at all. While Muronyu was teaching Gukai combat skills in High Sun Village. Senior, the #1 warrior of High Sun Village, Miyang, bowed in front of a middle-aged man with an extremely respectful expression. Is there any news about Muronyu? The middle-aged man looked at Miyang and asked indifferently. Muronyu is currently sparring with Gukai in Shiyang Village. Miyang said respectfully. The two of them were both in the divine realm, but Miyang's body was much stronger than the middle-aged man's. Logically speaking, Miyang shouldn't be so servile. However, only Miyang knew, although his body was much stronger than this person's, the middle-aged man in front of him could easily kill him, because this middle-aged man had an extremely brilliant combat skill. In front of a brilliant combat skill, the physical strength he was so proud of was just a joke. Senior, are you really going to kill Muronyu? Miyang suddenly asked. A cold light flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes. What? Are you afraid? I wouldn't dare, Miyang hurriedly said. However, he was cursing in his heart. Even you are no match for Muronyu, and you want me to kill him? Isn't that asking me to die? In the divine realm outside, I can easily kill Muronyu. Although my combat skill is far superior to Muronyu's, your body is in the divine realm. But in your desolate world, my physical body is restricted. The difference between me and Muronyu is too great. That's why it's hard for me to kill Muronyu alone. However, if I cooperate with you, it's more than enough to kill him. Miyang continued cursing in his heart. If you are so strong, why don't you wait until you reach the divine realm to kill Muronyu? Do you have to do it here? You're definitely no match for Muronyu outside. This middle-aged man came from the divine realm and was the quasi-saint whose blood crystal Muronyu stole. After he came to High Sun Village, he taught Miyang combat skills in exchange for a large number of blood crystals. He also wanted to bring Miyang out of the divine realm. I'm afraid I can't do it alone. Last time, that idiot was sent flying by Muronyu, but he escaped from High Sun Village. Damn it! Miyang's eyes flashed coldly. Miyang was talking about the middle-aged man who was sent flying by Muronyu. That man was a wandering master who was recruited by Miyang in a High Sun Village. However, he didn't expect that after he was defeated, he fled in the middle of the night. This made Miyang very angry. Try to find as many masters as you in a month. Don't tell me you can't find such people with powerful combat skills. The middle-aged man looked at Miyang calmly and said, I can definitely do it. Miyang said respectfully. However, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Bastard, you only taught me part of the combat skills. As long as you kill Muronyu, I'll take you out of the divine realm. Once you leave the divine realm, with your special abilities, you'll definitely be able to move unhindered. The human quasi-saint said calmly. However, he didn't even know how to leave the divine realm. Gukai's talent was extremely high, and his understanding of combat skills was comparable to Muronyu's. He was definitely a talent that could be molded. In less than a month, he had already comprehended most of the dragon-elephant prajna technique. Of course, during this process, Muronyu also imparted some combat techniques and physical cultivation techniques to the villagers of Sunny Creek Village. Of course, those were just ordinary high-grade cultivation methods. The dragon-elephant prajna technique was only taught to Gukai alone. However, in High Sun Village, other than Yinlai, everyone else's talent was really bad. In a month, they couldn't even reach the beginner level, let alone the higher level. Big Brother Moron, my talent isn't bad, right? Did I reach your standards for a disciple? On this day, after cultivating, Gukai excitedly ran in front of Murong Yu and asked. The muscles on Murong Yu's face twitched slightly. Gukai asked this question at least dozens of times every day, and he never got tired of it. Let's talk about it after you defeat me. Murong Yu finally lost his patience. Gukai immediately became depressed. Wait until I defeat you, then I can be your master. Murong Yu immediately glared. Gukai scratched his head and smiled foolishly, not afraid of Murong Yu at all. Your talent is enough to be my disciple. It's just that. Murong Yu looked at Gukai and said calmly. After spending some time together, Murong Yu had indeed taken a liking to Gukai. Don't be fooled by the fact that he looked like a big fool who would smile foolishly all day long. He was actually very talented. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to cultivate the dragon-elephant prajna technique to the large success stage in a month. Moreover, his mind was pure, and he was definitely the best candidate for cultivation. As long as he had a good teacher to guide him and a good cultivation technique, his future achievements would definitely not be bad. At least, he could become a sage. Murong Yu also discovered that although Gukai didn't have any special physique, he had a very pure heart. However, he had a pure and innocent heart. Even if their talent was ordinary, they would still be able to cultivate at twice the speed with half the effort. Moreover, this silly guy's talent was definitely not bad. The most important thing was his heart for Sunny Creek Village. He completely treated Sunny Creek Village as his own family to protect. Unless he died, he would definitely not allow Sunny Creek Village to be harmed. However, it was also because of this that Murong Yu hesitated. If they were in the realm of the gods, Murong Yu would definitely take him as his disciple without hesitation. But now, Master, please accept me as your disciple. Gukai was instantly overjoyed and bowed to Murong Yu. However, he was blocked by Murong Yu. Although I won't ask my disciples to serve me, I am from the realm of the gods. In the future, I will ascend to the holy world and become a sage. Therefore, if you want to take me as your master, you must leave the desolate world with me and return to the realm of the gods. Then, you will ascend to the holy world. At this point, Murong Yu patted Gukai's shoulder and said, Think about it carefully. Gukai immediately became silent. Sunny Creek Village was his home. The reason why he wanted to become strong was to protect this home. If he had to leave this home to become strong, he couldn't accept it. However, great power was also his goal. Even becoming a sage was also his goal. Of course, before I leave, I will also leave some cultivation techniques for Sunny Creek Village. Yes, after the trip to the mine, I will leave the desolate world. Therefore, you still have a few months to think about it. Don't worry, think carefully. The desolate world. Murong Yu already had a rough idea of what kind of place it was. In the end, he would have to leave this world. However, he didn't dare to guarantee that when he left, he would be able to bring the people of the desolate world with him. This was because although he could enter the Hichu Luoshu world now, he couldn't. He couldn't sense the transfer point to the realm of the gods. It was as if he had entered the heavenly region again. Moreover, the desolate world and the realm of the gods were two different worlds. If he brought them to the realm of the gods, would they be able to adapt? Gukai fell silent as he watched Murong Yu's figure gradually disappear into the distance. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.